Oh, well. Look, hey everyone, we're live. My name is Naomi. I'm the host of this podcast called Survivor New York, Blood versus Water, the recap, the experience, the ride, the show, the game. I am so excited because tonight we are doing our very first post-finale deep dive. Before we get to the queen herself, we have to introduce our fellow guests. We have the host, Chris Lord. Chris, how is it going? Another week in a row, having to talk to me.
Well, I'm excited for that part. I'm really excited about this group, and I'm excited to now be able to talk about the whole game, the whole experience, and especially with Innessa and Alex, two like absolute icons from the Survivor New York series.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of which, Alex, Chris just called you an icon. How do you feel?
I feel like an icon. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here and very excited to talk about the whole season. This is very exciting because this is your first one where everything's aired and we can talk about everything. I'm so excited. What a season.
The burden. We are free. We no longer have to pretend like we don't know what's going to happen. We knew the whole time. And here, look at who it is. It is the under a log idol queen herself. It is Innessa. Innessa, I'm so glad. I knew as soon as we were done, we were going to have to get this out here. Innessa, how are you?
I'm really good. It's so, it's such an honor to be here amongst all these icons, as Alex put it. Thank you guys for having me. I can't wait to have this therapy session. I have been trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong for years. Now that I see how it all played out, I'm just like really satisfied with the season, really, proud of everybody's game and, excited to talk about it all. This was phenomenal. And honestly, what great work. You and Chris, you guys did some incredible work here. Alex, you were fine too.
I did what I could. I was.
Yeah, if you see any really tall camera angles, that was Alex. Well, I think that's a great point.
I'm in the background of some shots. I'm in the background.
That's a great point.
You're awesome.
Was that Chris did all the heavy lifting on this, created this finale from scratch, brought it together, and I think every viewer and every contestant especially is so happy that they got to see themselves. Maybe some are not. I assume they all are. They said they liked it. They're so happy to see it all sort of laid out. And Chris, it really is like you did such an amazing job. And I know the subtitles were a bitch.
Thank you.
We're going to get better microphones for next time.
You know what? It's such a learning curve because honestly it just makes it so much better for the next game and then the next game. So everything is really just making it its place for the future. And I'm grateful.
It's all investments. It's all investments. And as I close the window, I know you just opened it. All right.
I don't know what I did. Okay, sorry.
Open it on Facebook. Hi, Louie. It's nice to see you. Louie says we're all beautiful. I'm beautiful on the inside. And so we are going to start at the very beginning and work our way towards the finale, probably going on a million twists and turns. Right off the bat, let's talk, Innessa, about the preparation and the day one, because I assumed you tried to prepare Eddie for as much as possible.
So I always thought, Paddock, I love her.
We love Paddock. We love you.
I always thought, and I think I thought wrong. So this was my very first game. I had never done any game before, whether it be online, mini, org, whatever, now that I know all the words. I've never done any game before. And I was always under the impression that it doesn't really require any preparation. All you have to do is just be flexible and you just have to know the game. And there's really nothing else you can do. There's no cramming. There's no prep work, nothing like that. You just have to be flexible, be friendly, just have the core skills, and it is what it is. You'll sink or swim, move along. So I really honestly did not prepare. And I really should have, because every single challenge was running based, which was to my detriment. I not worked out in 5-10 years. It was horrendous. I couldn't run for shit. Susan was outrunning me in every single challenge, but I actually realized later she was a marathon runner, so good for her.
Yeah, she's great.
But yeah, no, and I was like, oh my God, I'm really bad. But I didn't prepare. And then Eddie, I didn't want to like overwhelm him and make him nervous. So I was like, first off, I didn't even think you needed to prepare, so I wouldn't have thought that you did. He watched Kagayan, which is like the only season he ever watched, and he really liked Spencer. And it was, I think maybe a month ago that he had watched that season. And then it was just like coincidence, like, hey, remember, like you watched a show, can you want to like do this with me? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So he didn't really prepare at all. And I didn't tell him to prepare. I was like, you're friendly, you're going to do great. You know, just get along with everybody, keep it light, be in the numbers. Something Paddock actually taught me, I didn't know this before. And I actually never met Paddock until we did Survivor Brooklyn. But thinking back, like she was totally right. Like, especially early on, you always have to like, don't do one-on-ones, just be in the numbers. Like no one-on-ones, like don't get pulled aside, don't get pulled into anything, just stay with a group. Because as soon as you go to the side, somebody's like, how about them? How about her? You know? So I realized that, but I didn't like verbalize it in my thoughts. So that was something that like we did. And I kind of told them like, you know, just stay with the numbers, you know, just be friends with everybody. Just yes, everybody, keep eye contact, like make alliances, be friendly. You're going to do great. And that was it.
It sounds like you're preparing him for like the first day of kindergarten.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Just share your crayons. You'll be fine.
Remember what Spencer did? Just do that.
Alex, did you have something? I thought you might want to say something. You looked like you had something to say. I didn't know if I was cutting you off.
No, I didn't. I mean, I think, yeah, what she said was great.
And so I thought that out of the people who were coming to play, you were actually one of the only people I knew. And I was like, oh, they're in for a treat when they got to play against Innessa. Because I knew that your brain worked in this very, very intelligent survivor way. Like when I see you counting the votes, I'm like, I would never, ever count the votes. I'd be like, the votes for numbers, it's fine. Let's move on. So I thought you going into this game was going to be such a sort of intelligent, like, player. And I was like, these guys are going to have something to really deal with. Chris, do you remember anything about your first impressions of Innessa when you got to meet her? Because Alex and I have known you for a bit of time, but Chris, you were blessed with the presence of Innessa in a new way. So what were your first initial thoughts?
Wow, you know, it's so hard because it was so long ago, but I remember seeing her name, like Dan had said, oh, I think we're going to pick this girl named Innessa. And I was like, wow, her name just seems so intriguing. And then I started to like do some like Facebook digging. I was like, wow, she seems really cool. Like, and then seeing her like in action, strategizing, the first tribal council that she went to, I was very impressed. And I knew she was going to be like one of the top 5 like gamers. And knowing that she, like her profession and everything, I was like, okay, the first winner of Survivor New York had the same profession. This person has what it takes to win. Wow. And I was impressed from the beginning, and I didn't predict that she'd be in the final 3, but I knew she would get very close to it. So it was always a positive. Whether you were a villain or a hero, I didn't really think about villain. That. Yeah, I was, but strategically, you were always like a top dog.
Thank you. And Naomi, I think we knew each other from Mafia. That was before Survivor New York. I'm like, I know that we became really, really close afterwards, but I can't quite put my finger on. I recall like we were playing Mafia at some hair salon is where we met or something like that.
Yeah. So the timeline is I became friends with Amy because Amy does my comedy show. We pull her from the audience. And Amy introduces me to Alex and the likes. And then I start getting roped into Mafia, and I come because I believe this season happens after Hustlers, or is it after Game Changers? I can't. We'll have to do the math on this because I was definitely coming to the bar during Hustlers, but not during Game Changers. But I did play Mafia with you guys at like, people's apartments, and so I knew that. If anything, I was like, I know Innessa's smart. I know Innessa loves Survivor, and that's a bad combination for anybody else who wants to play this game. I mean, the things you don't want to see are somebody who like plays a game like Mafia on the regular. That's a great piece of advice for anybody who plays live reality games. If you hear that somebody plays Mafia, like vote them out because they're probably going to be good at lying. Alex is like, I know.
Terrible.
That's bad advice.
Let's mark it down on the board. 1 point for Naomi having terrible advice, courtesy of Alex. So when we talk about this early game, I think what is so interesting is that right away, Innessa, we had this great confessional for you where you're like, I think I got Sam, I think I got Gary, and I think I got Louie and Josh and Hoyt, and you just sort of like, this web is so far spreading right from the bat. So can you talk to me about relationship with Sam in particular? Because I think this is one of the first alliances you make. It's something that takes you all the way to the end together. And I think it is a really compelling alliance because, you know, you're a New York lawyer. He's this gym teacher from Kentucky. Like, you know, on paper, you might not hit it off right away, but you really did. So I would love to know about the early days of this relationship.
Yeah, and I think he does insurance or something like that. So check this content. So actually, I remember specifically connecting with Sam on day 0 and we were all meeting, and he was sitting in like a very big, comfortable chair. It was like we were all packed into this room and we were all just trying to make connections with each other. And he wasn't like moving around, buzzing around, talking to people. He was just sitting in this chair and people were coming to him like he was like the godfather, you know, and everybody was coming to each other. But I remember like, I remember I wanted to put myself below him. So like I sat on the floor as he was like sitting in this chair. And I remember like sitting on the floor, like looking up at him, like I was like his child, you know what I mean? And like, I like wanted to like build that connection with him. Like, you need to protect me. Like, you know what I mean? And I felt like he would like do that. And, but it was genuine. Like, honestly, I really, really wanted to work with him. Like, I wasn't trying to manipulate him, but like in my mind, I was thinking like, he will like me more if he like thinks this of me, you know? So he like, I think we built a connection like really, really quickly in that day 0. And I think that he wanted to work with me and I wanted to work with him. So it was great. And he had that connection to the other women on that group in that team. And I think it was, oh my God, it was like Susan and Sandy, yeah. So both, he had a really good connection with them and I did not have a good connection with them. So he like covered me on that end. And in the beginning, I really wanted to work with Josh and Hoy because me, Eddie, Sarah, and Josh slept next to each other in the tent. And we kind of like agreed to look after each other. Like I could tell Josh was a gamer and I thought Josh would be on my team. No, wait, that is exactly what happened. I thought Sarah would be on my team. So I bonded with Sarah because like I like always want to work with women. And I mean, not always, but you know what I mean? Like I like am drawn to that, right? And I like really wanted to work with her. And then Josh ended up being on my team, which is great. Like nothing against Josh. I'm like, okay, great, we're gonna work together. But I also really wanted to work with Hoy. But the thing is, Hoy and Josh did not get along. And Josh did not seem to be pulling anybody else in. So it was like Josh here, and I want Josh, and then Hoy here, and I want Hoy, and Hoy is pulling in Sanchea, you know, and I'm like, crap, he's got like more numbers over here, and they're not collecting, you know, and then separately, I was really good with Louie, and Louie was pulling in Gary. So then I had like this 3 going on with Louie and Gary. I really wanted to work with Hoy and Josh, and I actually wasn't trying to work with Sanchea, Avanti, and then Sandy and Susie. I was trying to work with Sam, so that was me and him. And then and then Hoy and Josh were just not coming together. And then I was feeling threatened by Sanchea because I heard like her throwing my name out in the very beginning, but that was because I never connected with her. So then when Hoy was like, I really like think it should be me, you, and Sanchea, I was like, what? I don't think Sanchea likes me, you know? And she's like, no, she does. So then I was like, you know what? Let's cut to the chase. So I went and I pulled Sanchea to the side and I'm like, me and you, let's go, you know? And then she like immediately melted and like we formed like a really close alliance immediately because she felt very comfortable with Hoy. And then I had to just like throw Josh by the wayside because it was just not working out. He wasn't pulling in anybody else in, and I needed to stay with the numbers. And that's when me and Sanchea, so in the beginning, when Gary said that Sanchea was coming for me, he was right. That did happen. It's just that like it was then remedied. And then like me, Sanchea, and Hoy were super tight. And I needed to get Avanti out. And I told Hoy, I'm like, we can be together, but we need to get Avanti out because Sanchea is never picking me over Avanti. So like if we cut Avanti out, then I'll be like her close girl. You know what I mean? So
the web is so deep. Alex, I was wondering, because you were with the Yellow Tribe for a lot of this early game, if you had any thoughts or maybe questions about the sort of early Purple Tribe that you never got the answers to.
Yeah, well, it seemed like he was in a great spot. I mean, I guess there was something we mentioned during the podcast for the first episode that I maybe Innessa wants to clear up, because there was like a confessional or something with you that said like, "Ooh, maybe I can be like the fifth person," and I was like, "Oh, maybe explain that," because normally you don't want to be the fifth person because that's the most expendable person in an alliance. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to, explain what you were talking about.
Sure, and I think that's a valid strategy because you want everybody to feel really comfortable in their position. And if you're in a position where there's two groups of people that feel very comfortable, like they think they have the advantage over you because they feel tight in this 5-person situation because they have a number one, right? So Hoy and Sinchea were each other's number one, and they had me. And it's so early in the game, like I don't need to be somebody's number one. It's totally fine. I just need to be in the numbers, okay? And I need everybody else to feel very secure exactly where they are. So Hoy and Sinchea were tight, and they were very comfortable pulling me in because they knew that I wasn't threatening to them. They were still each other's number one. And then Gary and Louie were each other's number one at the time, and they felt very comfortable pulling me in. Like they were always talking about, it's me and you. Oh, Innessa will vote with us, you know? And then Sam had his own thing going on, but like I thought I was really close with Sam anyway. So I was really tight, and I was totally fine being a fifth wheel, like 100% fine. I'll take that position any day of the week because you just want to be in the numbers and you want everybody else to feel very comfortable in those numbers. Mm-hmm. So I stand by that.
I have a fun little question from William Yelton. Where do I rank in your live game allies? What do you think, William or Sam?
Can you give like your top five? Innessa, like your top five, like you have Survivor Brooklyn South, you have Survivor New York, and you have Surviving Reelfoot. So what is your top five from fifth to first, your top five allies throughout all three games?
Sure. I think William's up there. He's either one or two. Well, look, I can't count Eddie, right? Okay, like I'm not counting Eddie. Eddie's always going to be number one. Okay, Eddie's number one. Okay, Eddie's number one.
Don't count Eddie though.
Yeah. But I mean, he's like number one with a bullet, right? So if I don't count him, I think William is probably one or two, and then I would say Louie is one or two because of Louie kept Mark in check that entire game, and because Louie kept Mark in check, the yellows couldn't go after me. So because Mark could not,
even though he tried to vote you out, though, wouldn't your wouldn't one of your top allies not vote you out?
William voted me out. William did vote me out. So
it's a pattern with all your allies.
Yes, this is exactly what happens every single time. Welcome to my world. I either win or I get voted out right there.
Your allies. So that's wait. So far, you've mentioned your top allies being people other than Eddie who have tried to get you out.
Okay, I'm interested in the last three. Who are the last three?
Let me explain why Williams was a great ally, though, because like he was incredibly strategic and really, and Louie was exactly the same way. Louie like calmed me down and he was like, let me talk to you slowly. Let me tell you this. All your pieces are here. Let me put all your pieces together and let me explain to you what's going on. And also Louie's very likable and William was incredibly likable, which like I need because I am not. So if I have people like that watching my back, I'm in very good shape. And if they have like strategic sense, like that's like the best ally you can have. I would never trade William as an ally ever. And I think Louie was a phenomenal ally also. The other ones, I mean, Alex Wagner was a great ally too. Emily Paddock was like probably Emily could probably be my number one ally, actually, now that I think about it. She's really out there for the exact same reason. What?
She didn't vote you out.
Maybe honestly, Emily's probably right up there also. Yeah, and she was like huge shield also. I would say nobody was voting me out when she was in the game ever. Same with William. Nobody. Yeah. I don't know. I can't pick. Those three are the top for sure. Yeah, those three are the top.
The overlap because like I've played with Emily and I've played with Alex and like it's hilarious where I'm like, oh yeah, they were both. Emily was not a close ally of mine, but Alex. The overlap is hilarious of like who knows who and then like who works for who. But like it seems like we all kind of get along with the same people, which is pretty funny. Oh. Who it is. The queen herself has come to grace us with.
It's one of my favorite allies.
Yes, one of Alex's best allies ever.
This is so embarrassing because my mom is probably watching right now.
Hi, Chris's mom.
This is the perfect time to say that, Chantal. You're completely correct. Mom. Chris is the best host ever. Chris is so cool with his sunglasses and reads those perfectly ordered votes by Alex. You know, it's a real team that makes Chris look good. I don't know.
It's all you, Naomi.
Sam is also phenomenal. I think Sam is underestimated.
Where's Gary in that? Like, if Gary's one of your top allies, where would he rank though? Because I feel like you and Gary were so close, Innessa. You wouldn't think Gary's top 5?
I think this is all kind of connected because Andrea asked you, you thought that maybe you thought that Sam was going to get a lot of the votes and you're blindsided by Gary's support. That's just something to think about.
I would have campaigned for Sam and voted for Sam. If I was on the jury, I would have campaigned heavily for Sam. I think Sam is a phenomenal player. I think Sam is extremely logical, flexible, rational. Like, I voted for him, and then he turns around because he knows strategically that it would be the best move for him to split up Louis and Mark. And like, it doesn't faze him that I just voted for him. He knows, and he saved me the very next vote with his double vote because he knows that it would be best for his game. And throughout the whole game, he was just very steadfast. He was a perfect ally, honestly. And he's really up there. He's definitely top 5 as well. I think he's great. He sometimes does things that I don't sanction, which is like annoying. But I do think he came through exactly when it counted. I think he's a great ally. And I would have voted for him. I was surprised. See, I don't think Gary was the best ally because he tried to get me out multiple times. It's just that his plans always failed because he couldn't get the numbers, which is like why like I had my eye on him, right? Like he just couldn't get it together to vote me out. But I think he tried. He would have tried many times. So I think he would have if he could, where I don't think Sam would have.
Right.
Did you ever think about getting Gary out in the game? Like, was there ever a moment that it came close to possibly happening? Because I mean, we never saw it. There really was very rare talks about Gary's name coming up as a target. But in your experience, did you ever think about it and talk to other people about it?
So there was one time. The thing is, we couldn't get him out at the time that we wanted. Honestly, like I didn't try to get him out. Like I would have been okay. I was wrong, okay? And I'm wrong, and I was wrong, and I remain to be wrong. But like I wanted to go to the end with him, and that was it. So like I didn't want to get him out, and I didn't think that it was advantageous for me to try to get him out. So there was a time when I considered it, when it was when I foresaw that it could have been me, Eddie versus Louis, Mark, and then Gary being in the middle. So we were like, we could just get him out now, like whatever, but it wouldn't have helped, right? Because then we would have still been in the same position. So I didn't want him out, and like I didn't really try.
Mm-hmm.
There was other things, those other people I wanted out.
I think this is a great way to segue into what you have your chart about, which is the Charles vote.
Oh my God, I literally made a chart. I made a chart.
Everybody pisses off Gary. So, Alex, do you want to ask something about this, but to lead Innessa into everything she has to say about this vote?
Okay.
I don't know if you had any thoughts.
Any question? Well, there's so many things. I don't even know where to start. But you were the only one to vote for Sarah, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you end up being the only person to vote for Sarah?
Sure. It should have been me and Sam voting for Sarah. That's what was surprising, that Sam did not vote for Sarah, but it should have only been 2 votes on Sarah. So I can definitely explain this. I literally, like, after the game ended, I took like massive notes in my phone just so I wouldn't forget what happened. So Louis told us, and he thought that Sarah had an idol because she played phenomenally that round. Like I said this 100 times. She really had everybody thinking she had an idol. So we thought that we needed to split the vote. And at the time, Gary had thought that Sanchea was not 100% with me, because in the beginning she wasn't. And he had pitched to me getting Sanchea out. So coupled with him being close to Louis and Charles being on the block, like theoretically, I thought, and everybody thought, right? This wasn't just me, that there was a significant chance that Gary, Charles, and Sarah were going to vote for Sanchea. Okay, so at the time there was 8 people left. It was me, Sanchea, Hoy, Sam, Louis, Gary, Charles, and Sarah. And we thought Gary, Charles, and Sarah were going to vote for Sanchea. Okay, but we weren't 100% sure that Gary and Charles were going to vote for Sanchea. We were like 60% sure. Okay, alternatively, they could have voted for Sarah. So they could have voted for Sanchea or Sarah. So then we thought, okay, we're going to split the vote. So the plan was to put 3 votes on Charles. So then 3 votes could be on Sanchea, okay? And then 2 votes will go on Sarah. So the Charles votes were supposed to be Sanchea, Hoy, and Louis. Okay, so those 3 votes were supposed to be on Charles, and then 3 votes were going to go on Sanchea, and then 2 votes were going to go on Sarah, and that was supposed to be me and Sam. And then if Gary and Charles also vote for Sarah, then it'll be 4 votes on Sarah. Okay, so either way, we were protecting Sanchea. So then it was supposed to be Sarah was going to get either 3 votes or 5 votes. Charles was going to get 3 votes no matter what, and then Sanchea was going to get 3 votes or 1 vote, so that either Sarah goes home, which unfortunately would have been fine, or it's just going to be a tie, and then we just revote. Okay, but what happened was we had no idea that Sarah had an extra vote. That totally screwed us up. Well, it could have, it didn't. And then Sam just didn't close. Like Sam just all voted for Charles. Oh no, Sarah. Who the hell? Sanchea. Sorry, yeah. Voted for Sanchea, but then Sarah, instead of voting for Sanchea, voted for Charles twice. So kind of covered Sam's vote. So this was totally unexpected, but I thought our plan was foolproof. And the reason that I voted for Sarah, I volunteered to vote for Sarah, because when we were deciding who are going to be the 3 people that vote for Charles, like Sanchea's name was on the block, right? So she's like, I'll vote for Charles. I don't care. And then Hoy, like being her closest ally, was like, I'll do it with you, girl. Like, I'll vote for Charles. And then Louis was like, well, I think Sarah has an idol, so I'll vote for Charles. And then I was like, no problem. I'm going to vote for me and Sam. We're going to vote for what's her name? Sarah, because also like I didn't want to cross Gary, right? I think that he would have been very mad at me. And like, I was fine leaving an angry Sarah in the game, assuming she had an idol, versus like, not voting with Gary. So, or voting against Gary.
I'm curious what you two have to say, but I think it's a better idea to vote for Sarah than Charles in the scheme of like, don't piss off somebody who is on your tribe and don't piss off Gary. I'm wondering if Alex and Chris agree, because I think Innessa, what you're saying is completely correct. Don't piss off Gary. Like, get rid of the person who's all on her own.
But Sarah was left mad at me, which is fine. I didn't think she had that, like, no offense, I didn't think she had that much influence to draw in numbers, where Gary does. Gary did.
Right. So Alex and Chris, what would you have done?
Well, I would say, I feel like it depends on your relationship with Gary. Like, if you feel close to Gary, then I think you want to keep his partner in the game, because that could also be another number to work with.
I wanted Charles out.
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually you'd want the person out, because you would know that they would always pick their partner over you. But I mean, in the early stages of the game, I don't think, that you necessarily need to do something like that. But if you don't feel close to Gary, or you're a little worried about Gary, then you don't want him to have an extra person that he could use to get you out. Chris, what do you think?
That's true.
Well, first of all, I just remember this whole thing happening, and then Alex and I are in like the shed where they're voting with this, and we're like, what the hell just happened? Like, there was like, and like Naomi walks up, was like, so what happened? And we couldn't really explain it, because it was like, it just, there's no way to explain it. It was just so crazy. But I think Innessa left that vote in the best spot, honestly, because I mean, Sarah had to understand that that's what Innessa had to do. She was playing for the Purple Tribe, and it was either vote for Charles or vote for her. So how can Sarah be mad? And then on the flip side, she did the right thing by her alliance.
Yeah, she was the only one. One of the few people who did what she said she was going to do.
Exactly.
Which is crazy how somehow it went from that vote to, I feel like by the merge, everyone was like, oh, don't trust Innessa. I don't know how that happened, because after that vote, I feel like you look great. But then somehow when we get to the merge, everyone's like, oh, Innessa, you can't trust her. But it really, you look at that up to that point, like you had voted exactly the way you said you were going to vote.
And it's funny because like people think, like watching it, like, oh, Innessa had no clue what was going on. Like you're like showing your fingers, like trying to count all the votes. You look so confused. But like, I feel like you actually knew everything that was going on, but you just were confused in that moment.
I didn't understand where the extra vote came from, but I actually like that it made it, because I was the only one that voted for Sarah, it made it look like I didn't have a strong alliance. So for Sarah, it might have given her incentive not to target me. Maybe like, oh, Innessa's at the bottom. She has no idea what's going on. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I also like, honestly, this is my strategy. Like whoever's watching, like can hear this out, right? Like I just want to get to the end. Like I will build a strong alliance in the very beginning, and I will pick a scapegoat and just like throw that person under the bus so we can all rally against throwing that person under the bus. We'll just pick somebody. And then we'll build a strong alliance. And then I'll just literally take that alliance all the way to the end. I will never turn on that alliance. Sometimes that alliance turns on me or I win. You know what I mean? Like I don't, or I lose at final.
Well, actually, there's a different result that we saw.
Yeah. Yeah, spoiler alert. I lose a trial. I get to the end, or my alliance blindsides me. But like, I've never turned on my alliance ever because I have no incentive to do that. I'm a boring player. I want the status quo. I want the boring moves. I don't want any big moves. I don't want any shakeups. Like I'm usually in the majority, and I don't want anything crazy happening. I don't want any twists. I don't want any idols. I don't want any shakeups. I just want to take it very slowly and continually to the very end.
Like, very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, Jeff would love
Don't say that in your Survivor application.
Yeah, seriously.
Well,
no, but I respect that. I like that.
And I think it's interesting to see you play compared to people who maybe have not played, like Sarah, who are just like, I'm gonna throw screw it, I'm gonna vote for Charles. You know, like they can't. Because she has always talked about how she heard the plan was Sanchea, but she didn't trust that it was Sanchea. I think some players who are more experienced in that position say like, oh yeah, they're trying to make a big move, let's vote with her. And she just said, I'm going to vote for Charles to try and save myself. It's really fascinating. But after this vote, we see a lot of emotional healing on this tribe. I don't know that we see a lot. We don't see a lot from you. We see like, Hoy and Sam and Sanchea. Did you have any like really sort of big conversations with the people from your tribe after this vote? Did you talk to maybe Gary or someone after this calamity went down?
Oh yeah, like me and Gary were like, I can't believe this happened. Like I'm on your side. It's me and you. Like I can't believe nobody else voted for Sarah. Like I'm at the very bottom. It's like you got to help me. Stuff like that. Sam was like super apologetic, but it's fine. Like, and the other thing, it's interesting, like I hear people saying in their confessionals that I'm super paranoid, which is so crazy. It's like a moment of self-realization. Like I did not think I was paranoid because like I always knew what was going to happen. So like I didn't think I was paranoid. But now that I'm watching it back, I totally get it. It's because I'm like trying to juggle 17 balls in the air, like 2 moves ahead. And then like I'm trying to like make sure that nobody changes the course. So like always like managing people like, okay, you're doing what you're going to do, right? Okay. And you're not forgetting? Okay. Like, it's so interesting watching it back that I'm coming across as paranoid when it's funny. Like I never thought I was at risk. So like except the one time when Sam saved me, I never thought I was paranoid because I never was worried. So it's so funny to hear that from Gary. He's like, that girl's so paranoid. I'm like, you're right. But did we have any emotional healing? No, I don't think so. I think I played a little dumb with Sarah and I played dumb with Gary, and then Sam was apologetic to me, which was fine. Like I think no emotional healing from my part. Maybe I could have used more.
Right. Well, you were safe for the next few rounds. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about this sort of pre-merge and this swap, especially before I move on to the chaos?
I mean, I'm just curious about like what your head was thinking. Like, say, obviously I talked to some of the other players that were on your tribe before, and they were saying like, okay, Sarah would have been next.
Yeah.
Is that also your consensus that Sarah was done if we guys had lost again? But my question after that is, if Sarah was next and then you guys, let's just say you lost again, was there like somebody kind of on the outs in that group of 6 that you could kind of pinpoint, or was it kind of like hard to remember?
No, I think it would have been Sarah. And I think so. If we go in order,
after Sarah,
yeah, but
was Sarah.
After
say you lost the next 2. After that, Sarah goes home, and then you guys have to go again, and it's you, Gary, Sam, Hoy,
let's just say you guys suck really hard. I'm
curious if there was a weaker link amongst the group.
Sure.
Your mindset.
Right. Oh, interesting. I think people would have tried to get Sam out, and I don't know if I could have stopped that train.
I agree with that.
And I think I would have probably let it happen.
Sam has a confessional where he
Yeah.
thinks that he would be the next to go.
Yes.
I think I don't know if I would have been able to stop that train, right? Because we had Sinche and Hoy linked up, and I was with them. We had Gary and Louis linked up, and I was with them. And then if Sarah's already out and Charles is already out, presumably, right? Charles is out, right? Yeah. So then it doesn't really leave anybody else, right? And then I would look to myself as potentially being in trouble. So I would just let Sam go. I'd be like, okay, whatever you guys want.
Yeah. Is there any? So I'm wondering if, like, let's say Gary is going to vote with Sam, and then it's like you, Gary, Sam. Are you guys thinking about voting for Sanchea again, or is it never really? Because you basically have like a in this hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's like everybody you essentially work with merge onwards.
Yeah.
Is there? Would you be interested in voting for Sanchea?
I could have done it just to stay safe, because at that point I was very close with Louis and Gary also. So I could go, I was in a flexible position. I could go with Louis and Gary, or I could go with Hoy and Sanchea, or, and Sam. So, and I would have had an interest in keeping Sam because he's not attached to anybody at the moment. So it could have been me and Sam as like a close pair. So I could have let Sam go if that meant being with the numbers, and I know that a merge is coming. Or I could have, voted Sanchea out there and stayed, then pulled in Hoy. I think either of those options would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. So can we just so in the beginning?
Yeah.
So we had Avanti was out first, right?
Yes.
And then after that, we were safe 2 times, right?
Yep.
And then the next person out was.
So so here's how it goes. You vote Avanti out. That's the first tribal council you go to. You go to the Charles vote, and then it's Sandy, and then Josh, and then you merge. So you only go to tribal council twice in the whole merge.
So at that time, Susie was not on our tribe anymore because she swapped away.
Yeah,
because me and Susie were always paired up in challenges together because we were like a similar build. And I thought I was like building a rapport with her. It's just that I really think Emily didn't like me, right? And I just like don't know how to get over that. So it was at the merge, and like I really tried to get her to like me. Like I just don't think she liked me, and it was like you can tell like she was just like standing like this. Like she was like when we were talking, she was like this, like her body language was just like, I really am not feeling this, you know what I mean? And like I tried really, really hard because we actually like really needed them at the merge. Because we were outnumbered. So I thought like, okay, girl power, let's go. I worked with your mom. Maybe you like me. She was just not having it. And there was like nothing I can do to convince her. It was just, she was just using it as ammunition, going back to the yellows, being like, oh, that Innessa, like she's so conniving. And I'm like, oh, fine. I guess we're going to have to get her out. Like,
is that the opposite of like Survivor Blood versus Water? She's working with my mom. Like,
I don't think she cared that I was working. I don't think she cared or believed that I was working with her mom. Like it just wasn't connecting. Like I don't think she cared that I was working with her mom. I don't know if I was working with her mom that closely, but like I had an appetite for working with them. Like I would have made it work. Like I was very interested in doing that out of pure necessity, but like necessity is just fucking fine in Survivor 2-day games. Like you can build something out of necessity. Like me and Sam went to the end and I tried to get him out. You know what I mean? Like it's fine. So, but it wasn't working. So I'm like, all right, I guess we'll just get her out. It's okay.
So you only had one vote to do it. Like there was only one vote of proof that you were working together. And so it is a little tough when you've only had one, 10-person vote to sort of say, hey, we're working together and we're cool. I think the yellow tribe had much more of like we have worked together. They sort of like come out like covered in mud and like, oh my God, that was brutal. All right, we're working together.
I just think
but who else is she gonna work with? Say she needs to.
Like Innessa, you like Mark said it a lot, and then you said it like Emily, you didn't get along. So I'm just curious, like, because you never were on the same tribe with Emily or Mark until the merge, but they both seem to like either dislike you or have it out for you or consider you a threat. So it's like, who was giving them this information about you, and they believe that information so much that they sort of almost held it against you because Emily just was never going to work with you, and Mark kind of only worked with you because of Louis. So I'm just curious, like how that may have happened.
So Mark that's not true with Mark. I think Mark is full of it. Think back on every single Mark confessional. He literally was like, ooh, Katie, she's in a power role. Let's try to get her out. People are getting drawn to Eddie. Let's try to get him out. He like has this mentality of whenever somebody like has any say in anything, that's like a threat to him. Mark is a very difficult player to play with. Okay. I love Mark, but like he is one of the most dangerous players because you never know when you're going to tick him off. You could be in the best of cases with him. And then all of a sudden he's like, she looked at me this particular way. I'm going to have to watch out for that. That's going to be something I'm going to have to work on getting her out. He did that to every single player. Think about it. Like, go back to the very beginning and watch his confessionals. He literally said that about Katie. He said that about Pete. He said that about Eddie. He didn't say that about Emily or Susan because they weren't threats at all. They never looked at him a bad way, but they would have, like, eventually. So I don't actually take that with any grain. I take that with some grain of salt. You know, like I don't find Mark being like having it out against me. Emily, however, I still don't understand because who else is she going to work with from the purple? Say she had a gun to her head. She has to work with somebody on the purple. Who do you pick? Why would she pick anybody else over? Like, why? Like, I'm trying so desperately hard to build a connection with her. Like, why? Why not? Like, right? I get she's going to stay with the yellow, but if she has to work with somebody across the aisle, why not? You know, I don't know.
Alex, do you have any thought on this?
I have a few thoughts. Well, the merge was very interesting to me. On any Blood vs. Water season, it's very interesting, and on this one, it really seemed like you get to see who's the more dominant of each of the pairs. Like I feel like Innessa, you brought your brother over. I felt like Louis eventually on the P vote brought Mark over, and I feel like Emily, you know, she brought her mom over. So it was very interesting to see that dynamic, and I think Emily, I can't speak for her, but yes, I think she was on the yellow side and she just wanted her mom to come over to the yellow side. And I feel like that's probably what it was.
But eventually when you have to cross the aisle, but eventually you have to work with somebody other than yellow. Eventually. I guess you don't
not always. I mean, it would have benefited eventually. I feel like in the beginning, I feel like the yellow I really did think that the yellow had the advantage, and I thought you taking your brother and Louis getting Mark to vote for Pete. That Pete vote was key.
That was my favorite vote. Love you, Pete.
Well, I was so confused. I missed the podcast, I guess, with Pete because I was so confused at why Pete and Sam both voted for Sarah because I always considered Sarah being on the yellow side of that, and I was so confused. It made no sense to me. Like, why aren't they working with Sarah? And it was very interesting to see how, each pair took their other partner, but the only one that the pair that didn't happen for was Pete and Sam, and they just voted together, but different from everyone else.
So I think the plan, and it was such a coordinated plan. Like, I can't take credit for it, but it was like everybody played a role in this. Because we had to disassemble the yellow tribe. We were at a disadvantage. So the plan was me and Eddie were going to go, and Eddie told me Pete is like he's very close with Pete. Pete trusts him, you know? So the plan was that I was going to go to Pete and say, like, look, we're done. The purple's done. Like, I'm going to jump off the sinking ship. Like, Eddie, you know, is working with you. He tells me that you're like amazing. You know, you're working with him closely. Like, I want to work with you. Please take me in. And by the way, I'm working with Sam. He's my #1 ally. Like, let's make this happen. So he really trusted us and thought like we had a thing. And he had his own side things. Like, he was comfortable in the numbers because he had this that was developing. He had his other side alliances. He had Mark. He had like Katie. I don't know. Was Katie still there at the time? I think she was out at the merge. Yeah, but he had other things going on. So he was very comfortable. And what happened was we convinced them. We're like, okay, like, what do you guys want to do? You want to vote out Hoy? Okay, well, that's convenient because Hoy wants to vote out Sarah and Sarah wants to vote out Hoy. That's perfect. Let's do that. Who do you want? Tell me, who do you want to vote for? They're like, why don't we just split the vote? You know, Hoy or Sarah? Let's just like everybody vote for Hoy and Sarah. You know, we think that Sarah has some sort of advantage because like the vote prior, something happened where she could have had an advantage. Yeah. So we're like, okay, let's just split the vote. One of them will go. So we're like, perfect. So we had convinced them to split the vote. And we told Sarah that Hoy is definitely voting for you. But don't worry, like, you know, the plan is to split the vote, right? So like, I know that you're going to get some votes, but like Hoy is going to get more votes. Like, I'm voting for Hoy. which is not true. But that was like everybody was, and we told Hoy the truth. We're like, listen, Hoy, we're all voting for Pete, right? So because Hoy was in our alliance. So the plan was to have the yellows split their votes and then have I think there was 5 of us left. I think there was 6-5. So the yellow had 6 and purple had 5. So we were trying to get the yellow to split their 6 and then all 5 strong minus Sam. We did not think Sam was going to vote for Pete. So we thought 4 were going to vote on Pete. But it turns out Sam did vote for Pete, which is great. It was a little messy.
Sam voted for Sarah.
Sam does vote for Sarah. I'm going to...
talking about the merge vote.
This is a messy vote. So
not
Mark
the merge vote.
This
Mark
is the
you're right.
vote, which I think, I thought this was, it changed the course of the game, this vote.
Yeah, I'm going to read this right now just for clarification.
No, you're right. I confused the merge vote. Yeah. But
Gary
that was still
votes
the
for Pete. Sam votes for Sarah. You vote for Pete. Mark votes for Pete. Susan votes for Hoy. Louis votes for Pete. Eddie votes for Pete. Hoy votes for Pete. Emily and Sarah vote for Hoy. And Pete votes for Sarah.
You're right. I'm sorry. I confused it. It wasn't the purple voting. It wasn't the purple voting for Sam. It was our new alliance. It was the core. It was the Louis, Mark, me, Eddie, Hoy voting for Pete. Yeah.
Right. And you and Louis both got your partners to vote out a yellow, which was that was key.
That was the game-changing move, I think, for you.
I think so.
That's what guided you to the end.
But in that vote, I feel like Susan voted with yellow, I think.
So they vote for Hoy, which is everybody is kind of, so anybody who's not in this purple alliance is being lied to, right? They're being told it's Sarah or Hoy. And Emily and Susan basically go on this stretch of voting for Hoy like 5 times in a row. And I think it all just became this thing of like, because Hoy was the name that was always out there, it's very similar to another player in season 4 that we'll see down the road. People are always willing to vote for that person. And tease it out.
I forgot about that.
People are always willing to vote for that person because they think it's what's finally going to happen, and it doesn't happen. So Hoy, granted, does eventually happen, but after 3 yellow votes,
I think it's so interesting that the 6 of you guys stayed so strong, and then you get to the final 8, and you're like, okay, we see each other as threats now. Like we'll let Susan slide, we'll let Sam slide, and you guys let them slide pretty far. Oh
my God, I was rooting. Yeah, at that, I was rooting for Mark at the final 5 challenge. I was rooting for Mark to win that challenge over Sam because I don't think I could have convinced anybody to not. Besides Susan, I could not have convinced Sam to vote out anybody other than Mark if Mark was not immune. So I was like, I need Susan out. I was like, oh my God.
Can we talk about that vote? Can we talk about that vote for a second?
Let's hop over to that.
We'll jump around a little bit maybe, but since we're on that.
We're in the merge. We're not looking back.
Let's go back to the merge. So I wanted to ask this question.
It's on my list of notes.
I want to ask a quick question. Like, so when Louis gets up to pull the idol from underneath the podium, like, what was your reaction? Because I mean, on camera, you don't really see much reaction, but like mentally, I just wanted to know what you were thinking in that moment.
Right. I was playing back a conversation that me and Louis had where, much like many other conversations, where I'm speaking a lot and he's like reiterating everything that I'm saying back, but like slower and like more put together. And in this conversation, I was replaying it back afterwards. He was looking for information, right? And I think it's because he was trying to figure out exactly where the vote was going. Where like, I was 100% on his side. I would have told him everything like without lying, but I don't think he like 100% knew that at the time, right? But he was like, where do you think the vote's gonna be? Oh, so you're saying this. So I'm replaying that in my head and I'm like, does Louis not like believe me? Like I would have told him straight up what the vote was. Like if he like had an idol, we could have strategized together. Like, so I was surprised. I did not know he had that idol. And I was like, Louis. So then I had to like pull him in like really close to make sure he trusted me. I didn't tell him like, why don't you trust me? I just like wanted to make sure like I did everything I could to like try to earn his trust.
Well, I thought he didn't have it yet. And he wasn't 100% sure it was even still there.
Okay, yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I think something really interesting that Louis said in his interview was he thought that Sarah might have gotten the clue for the idol.
Yes.
With what she finds, which is something hilarious that, like, in the 2 years since this game, I never even considered that.
I never considered it either.
Sarah had an idol clue and also thought that she could find it.
Can we talk about the log in the fog?
Let's talk about it.
Sure, there's so many things to talk about. Yeah, now we can talk about.
Wait,
I'm surprised at how excited you are to talk about.
I think Louis' comment is true.
Was there something in between that I skipped over? I didn't want anybody to
jump around.
Can we breeze through like the top? Okay, well, no, the top 10 was what the log in the fog, blah blah blah.
I'm worried that I skipped something. So I'm just thinking, okay, so then we have the merge.
The Pete vote.
We have the merge and the Pete vote.
Okay, that immunity challenge, I still laugh about it to this day. You like are holding the beams, and then all of a sudden you just, whatever. Like you just give up the immunity. You could have gotten the clue. You just were like, whatever, I don't care.
Well, we didn't know it was the clue, right? It was too late to do that, I think.
It was too late,
I remember because like I am seen as like a snake. So like never am I gonna like drop something to get a clue in public. Like I'm gonna find my idol secretly, but I'm not gonna like
that Hoy and Sam dropped for it. Those are people you're working with.
Or right, so I thought.
Yeah, if like Sarah or Mark had dropped for it, I feel like maybe there was an incentive to drop and also get the information. But since they didn't drop, it was like, screw it. Someone from my side will find it. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Chris, can you just mention where the idol that Innessa found was actually hidden? And why there's this miscommunication?
Okay. So the area where the tents were, so the immunity challenge where we had like the block stacking, like saying immunity, like there were torches kind of lined up in that grassy area, kind of right by my pool. And I thought to myself, it would be really cool to like hide an idol like underneath one of those like tiki torches. So like right underneath where the canister is, that is holding the kerosene, there's like a little open spot that you can probably like put something inside of. Without it being like bulky or anything. So I put it in there, and then I made my speech to tribal council that there's many ways to keep your torch lit because that's where the idol was. And I wasn't sure if anybody found it until I looked at the torch and saw that somebody had completely destroyed it. It was like when I saw it, I was like, wow. And you know what's funny? I think I still have that torch somewhere, so I'm never gonna get rid of it.
Oh my God, I'm sorry I killed your torch.
That's where it was, and when Innessa found it, I was shocked to find out that she found it. I thought it was Sam just because of how like destroyed it was.
So let me tell you, this is the funniest thing. I'm so happy Alex is here on this podcast right now because like you were involved in this, and this is the fucking hilarious. So first off, like not until the ride home where I was like delusional did I ever even think that the fog in the log clue was not real. Okay, like the entire.
Which is crazy because watching the finale, they talk about it. You talk about it at the finale, and they say that it was fake, and you still didn't understand.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Well, okay, let me tell you what was going on in my head. Okay, and then you'll know how crazy I am. So last night there was a fog. The idol is under a log. Okay, these words haunt me. All right, so I'm thinking, all right, so we're looking in the logs. Okay. And then it's not there and nobody finds it. I think nobody finds it, okay? Because if anybody's going to find it, it's going to be me, all right? That I think very highly of myself. So then I think they're going to give another. So then when Chris is giving another clue at Tribal, there's more than one way to keep your torch lit. I was like, right, of course, because nobody found it. He's giving another clue to the same exact idol. So as I was thinking, last night there was a fog. The idol is under a log. So I'm thinking fog. Okay, like last night, so where we're sleeping, there was a fog. Smoke causes fog. And I even actually looked like by like the fire pit, like in tribal council, there's like a fire pit. And I was like,
I remember we had to be like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah, you're like, get out of here. I'm like, well, I'm looking for the idol. So I'm thinking fire. Fire is already in my head because I'm thinking there was a fog, like smoke, I guess, causes fog. Like I'm thinking, like I'm trying to connect the pieces here. So I already had fire in my head because why say fog? Like that doesn't, like how can you make a fog besides fire? Like smoke. That's the only thing I could think of. So I'm thinking of fire. And then when he said, like, there's more than one way to keep your torch lit, I'm like, obviously it's on the torch. We're so stupid, you know? And then I'm thinking the log, okay, tiki torches are made out of wood, I guess. Okay, fine. I dig it. Okay, fine. So I connected it in my head. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, I got to run to the ladies' room. And I literally get up from tribal council and I beeline to that torch. Like, I knew exactly where it was. Like, in my head, there was no doubt about it. Like, I ran immediately to that torch. I grabbed it as fast as I could. And then Sam's like behind me. He's like, oh, I gotta go to the restroom. I'm like, yeah, me too. And I grab it and he's like right behind me. And like, I couldn't, like, I had to like get out of there really fast. And then Alex pulls me to the side of the house to like give a confession. Like, you gotta go to the restroom. I'm like, no, I just found this idol. So he's like I'm giving this confessional to Alex. And he's like, how did you find it? I'm like, these guys are so dumb. They literally told me where the clue is. Like, last night there was a fog, it's under a log. And then when he said the torch, there's more than one way to keep your torch lit, I knew exactly what it was. And Alex is fucking losing it. He's laughing so hard. He's like, oh yeah, tell me more. Tell me how dumb they are. Like, and he's like, tell me about that clue. And he's like egging me on. And I'm like, it's so obvious. Like, I can't believe they told me.
So Alex, you remember this?
I needed her to remind me about it because it's been over 2 years, right? But I definitely remember it now, and I remember it's so funny how you took the clue apart when actually in the clue it literally just says it's under a log. It's a terrible clue, but you really looked at each word so carefully, and it really is so funny that you thought that they were so stupid for giving you the clue. But hey, you know, who's laughing when you actually find an idol? Like, maybe you wouldn't have found that idol if they hadn't given you a fake clue.
I don't think it would have.
That's a very good point.
It made you more determined because you were like, I have a piece of information. And so you kept looking until you found something, even though the clue wasn't really helpful at all. It motivated you to try to find it.
As soon as Chris said that, I'm sitting there at tribal and I knew without a shadow of a doubt exactly where it was, because like in my mind, like this fake clue was real. And like even at final tribal council, when they were talking about a fake clue, I'm like, no, it's real. I found it. That's exactly where I found it.
That was so funny when they said we made it up and you're like, no. What do you mean you made it up? I found it.
Oh my God.
One of my favorite moments from the whole finale is just watching you like, no, I found it. Then everyone's like, wait, I don't, like, everybody questions reality. Like, everybody just found out they're in the Matrix because nobody knows what's real and what's fake anymore. It's really funny. And I'm so glad, like, it happened, you know, that everybody articulated it.
Alex told me in the car ride home it was a fake clue. I'm like, I'm like, no, it's not. I found it. He's like,
you
it was
still
a
didn't
fake
believe me.
So when you were watching
not
it,
even
like
a good fake clue.
that episode, Innessa, what were your thoughts when you saw them create that clue and then like watching them walk past the idol? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
That was so funny. That was amazing. I thought it was a great clue. I didn't think it was bad because there was a whole stack of logs. It was so funny seeing like Hoy trying to like keep Sam from like running ahead. It was so funny. That was hilarious. I had so many funny Sam moments that weren't caught on camera. There's one of my favorite moments was when after, I'm jumping ahead here, but this is a very quick story. But after Sam plays his double vote on me, he doesn't know that I have an idol. And I didn't want him to like feel like, what the fuck, Innessa? Like, you made me play a double vote on you. You had an idol this whole time. So I didn't want him to feel that way. I didn't want him to feel that I was keeping something from him. So I re-hid my idol. I re-hid it in the front of the house, like in a place. I was like, oh my God, if somebody else finds this, I'm gonna murder somebody. So like I re-hid the idol and then I found it in front of Sam. And then like I got so excited I found it. And then Sam like picks me up, twirls me around. He's like, Final 5, baby, Final 5.
No, but here's the thing about that, because that was definitely, I felt like, was a key moment. And I remember you were probably really happy when Sam was playing the extra vote that you didn't have to, that you could save your idol. But looking back, don't you think that if you actually did play your idol before Sam used his extra vote, you would have gotten credit for that vote? And that would have been like a great thing, you know, for the jury to see?
I needed Sam to get the credit. I needed Sam to feel secure. And that was Sam.
I mean, but looking back after the jury voted and you see how the votes go, you needed Sam to get the credit?
There was nothing I could have done more strategically to like win that jury. It had to be a personal thing. Like I needed to be a better like connecting to people on a personal basis. I think that it was a personality conflict rather than a strategic issue. There is no way you're going to convince me that had I done something else strategically, I would have won that jury over. I think if you ask that jury, hands down, like who played the most strategic game, every single person would say me. They just think that Gary played a better game all around, more well-rounded game. And that's true. Okay. Sure. And so that's why he won. There's nothing else I could have done strategically. I needed Sam to bring me to the end. If he was like not giving credit for things, he wouldn't have felt as comfortable.
Right. Also, I just want to say hi, Jamie. I hope you're doing well.
I think it would have been great. I think it would have been great to get credit for that vote. I think it would have been
looking back at the season, if there were two people in the final three with you that you could have beaten, who are those two people?
Oh my God. I honestly don't think I could have beaten anybody.
You could pick anybody all the way up to Serena. If you could look at the season, the two people, if you were up there against you,
because Serena was first, right? Yeah. I don't think I could have beaten anybody. I really don't. It's kind of like, I mean, I think like Hillary Clinton lost the election, she would have lost against everybody, right? Like I really like don't think I could have beaten anybody. I honestly don't think.
I don't know. I have an argument that if it was you, Hoy, and Susan, it could have been close in some ways, depending on how it had went down.
I mean, Mark, when he got voted out, said that he was going to vote for you. He said he was going to vote for you to win, but then he didn't. So
did that surprise you?
Hoy said the same thing.
Something happened.
I don't know.
I'm surprised.
I don't know what it is either.
Yeah, I mean,
here is my overall theory. I agree with Innessa that like the jury was very sort of rewarding of the social. And there are some points to Gary's game, right? Gary had 0 votes cast against him the entire round. Sometimes Gary would make a move to make something happen and it wouldn't work out. But, you know, sometimes in certain juries that effort is rewarded because, hey, you tried to help me. You tried to do something with me and it didn't work out. I think on the other hand, the actual amount of questions in Final Tribal Council that had to do with gameplay were very minimal. And so I think for you and Sam, who were players that made lots of choices that were very strategic, it didn't work out for you because when you try and shoehorn, like, by the way, I had an idol this whole time and I didn't need to play it, it comes across sometimes as fake, and that's really hard to shoehorn in the information that is like, hey, look at what a good sort of strategic game I made into like a question that's maybe about, like Louis saying, hey, why was it me? Why was that my time to go? Things like that. It can feel fake or sort of insensitive to the question that the juror has asked.
I agree. I think if I could have changed one thing, I would have changed the vote. And I don't want to skip ahead. I know that Alex wanted to talk about a bunch of different things in the middle. But I would have changed what happened in the final 5 vote. So, and yes. I think that goes to what Alex was saying. So I really, really, really needed Susan voted out there. Like I really needed that to happen. And I was rooting against Sam, like my number 1 ally then and there, because I needed Mark to win immunity because, like, first off, like Mark's not winning multiple immunities in a row. And it doesn't matter because I'm going to be out if Susan is not voted out here. And I'll explain why. But I needed Susan out. So I needed Mark to win immunity so that we needed somebody else to vote for. And it would have had to have been Susan. And I wish that what I would have done differently, if I had my choice, is like maybe highlight Gary's mistake. Because I think Gary made some critical mistakes, especially in that vote. And I should have highlighted. I should have literally, I thought about this, sat on the floor, looking at, literally talking to Susan, be like, listen, Susan, I have to explain this to you. I need you to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And maybe sat in a way where I'm facing the jury, and just been like, listen, you don't get to vote yourself out. You don't get to vote for yourself. Somebody else needs to vote. You don't get to eliminate yourself, right? You're fighting desperately hard at Final 5 just to help Mark at Final 4. Could you imagine how helpful you're going to be to him at Final 3 when you tell the jury not to vote for you, but to vote for Mark? Of course, he's bringing you to the end. Anybody in their right mind, in Mark's position, not everybody's position, in Mark's position will always bring you to the end, okay? Because you're very helpful to him. But on top of that, it doesn't matter who's at the end. If Mark is at the end, we all lose. Point blank, period. So it's not a matter of me or you. It's a matter of not Mark. Mark cannot be there because we all lose no matter what. Mark cannot be there. And as evidenced by Gary's vote right now, Gary cannot be relied upon to make the correct decision to vote out Mark. Okay? Which is why I need Sam, because he's the only one here that's going to make the rational decision of voting out Mark. Apparently, Gary cannot be trusted to do this, and you will not do it. So you need to go. And like, maybe just sat there silently after that. Okay, being like, not you need to go. Like I say it like a human being and just be like, I'm really sorry, but like I either lose or I make this move. Okay. And then just sat there silently and maybe played my idol on Sam. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I so much to unpack here. I actually thought Gary is a rational player, and I really think that that tribal council and the next one really won the game for him, and how he really seemed to take charge of both of those tribal councils. And I was confused because he had an idol at Final Five, and so did you, but he seemed to be like, because he seemed more willing, he seemed willing to use it on Susan. He seemed like he had more control, and it definitely seemed like you were just always going to play it for yourself, and you were the one who had to convince him. And he seemed like he had the power, but you also had power because, you could have also potentially played your idol on Sam if you wanted to. But the dynamic sort of became Gary took the power, with his words and by threatening to maybe play the idol on Susan. And I feel like he looked really good in that tribal council. And I think it probably wasn't a great look for you also, because I think a lot of people on the jury love Susan. And here you are in front of the jury being like, we gotta get Susan, we gotta cut her. Like, that's not a great look.
Well,
like, maybe that's a conversation that should happen not in front of the jury.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot left on the cutting room floor, but that conversation happened many times.
The other one thing I want to add is that, like, Innessa, you are benefiting from just essentially being in a power position, right? You know that you have the allies to take you there, and Mark is the underdog, and like inherently everybody is rooting for their yellow compatriot, the underdog, and it's a tough spot to be in, which is why you see so many winners of Survivor either be like a Nick Wilson, where he's the orange in the end with the two purples, or it's, everybody goes together in the end because they know they can't beat, the people who are in this sort of underdog position, and everybody's upset by it. Like, let's say a Rick Devens maybe. And I think you're just in one of those positions where people have been rooting for somebody so hard for the past 24 hours or so, and it doesn't pan out. And it's just easy to say, well, I'm upset at these people who ruined that chance, and I'm going to reward somebody who is giving the chance to somebody. It's human nature. And I think that it's both like not a fault of you for essentially not being the underdog, and it's not a fault of Gary for kind of having these emotional pulling points where he says maybe this will look good in front of the jury, and he tries for it. It's like, I don't think you're I guess, like, I feel like maybe walking away from this game, you might have felt like you had so much going on, you might have felt like, oh, I wasn't nice enough to the jury. But the truth of the matter was, you were always in a power position, and you didn't have to be the underdog. And so it like kind of looks like you're like, oh yeah, I was in charge the whole time. And for some people, that's not an appealing vote to reward.
It should be.
So what we're saying, Mike White was robbed. Thank you.
No, I mean, look, I think I said this before we started recording. I think that the winner of every season is the person that deserves to win, right? And there's no qualms about it. I think you got to know your jury and play for them, and it is what it is. I think Gary deserved to win, and he was the rightful winner because he was the winner, and that's absolutely right. And I think that, you just take your chance. You play your game and then hope the jury respects that, or they don't, and it is what it is. But I do think that what Alex was saying when he was talking about Gary potentially playing the idol on Susan, is that the issue is that I think there was a sub plan to potentially try to vote me out if I play my idol on Sam, right? So, and I think Sam was, I don't know what Sam was doing in that round, but he was like telling people that I had the idol, but I wasn't mad at him about it because it's Final Five. Of course I'm going to play my idol. Like, tell people, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm going to play my idol. It's Final Five. So I wasn't like mad at him about it, but I think there was some sort of thought that if we can get Innessa to play her idol on Sam, we can vote Innessa out. you know? So like, I was like very suspicious of like saying I'm going to play the idol on anybody other than me. Like I wanted everybody to know that I'm very selfish, right?
Well, you could have not said it and then done it before Gary played his idol, because by playing your idol for Sam first, then Gary's in a position where if he plays his idol on Susan, then it's rocks between you and Gary, and Gary wouldn't want that.
Why would I? Whoa, that's the worst possible outcome.
I
hesitated getting that idol.
No, because Gary wouldn't do that. Gary wouldn't play his idol for Susan. If you played your idol for Sam before Gary does anything with his idol, Gary's not going to play his idol on Susan.
They revote and get me out. I'm not immune.
There's no revote. He plays the idol for himself, and then Susan goes. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. I think that if they play their idol on Susan, if he plays idol on Susan, now it's a tie because there are no votes.
Yeah,
now
he's not. Yeah, I'm saying no. He's not going to play. And well, no, it would just. Well, we'd have to ask Chris what the rules are. But the only people not immune would be you and Gary.
No, but Mark still gets to vote. They're going to vote me out.
Oh yeah, you're right. It would be a revote.
No, I don't.
But
yeah,
who knows what would happen?
Oh, they vote me out.
Yeah.
What do you mean,
Mark and Susan would vote out
Yeah.
Innessa.
Oh my God, that was a fun thought experiment.
Gary-
Wait, I have a question for Innessa. So say in the tie vote you end up going home at that vote, and you're on the jury now. It's Mark, Gary, and Sam. I know you said you would vote for Sam. Do you think that Sam would win, or do you think Mark would win, or do you think Gary would win?
I think Mark would win, but I would push really hard for Sam. I would push really hard for Sam. I think Hoy pushed really hard for Gary. I think Hoy moved minds there on that jury, which I was devastated when I heard his question, his speech. So I knew I lost as soon as I heard Sanchea's question. And then when I heard Gary's question, I was like, I'm fucking done, you know? And then I was like, I have no chance to win because I needed those two votes. And when I knew I lost Sanchea's vote, I was like, this is crushing. And then when I heard Hoy's speech, I was like, I'm totally done. And I think like I kind of was like, oh man, this is not salvageable. But like I tried really hard. You know, I don't know what else I could have done. But I needed Hoy and Sanchea, and I was most shocked at Hoy's vote. And I actually talked to him about it afterwards. And I respect it; it's totally fine. I mean, but I was surprised. You know what I mean? I get it now, but I was very surprised.
So going into it, like,
minds.
who did you think going into that tribal council? Like, okay, I think I might have this person. Person. Like, who did you think?
Okay, I think I had Sanchea, Hoy, Eddie, Louis, Mark. That's 5. I would have won with that. And I didn't think I had anybody else. That would have carried the day though.
I say this, I said this to you, Innessa, before we started, but I'll say this now, like, watching this back, because in the moment I was delirious also, so I didn't really know what was going to happen. But watching this back, each of you in this final 3 has a great chance at winning. And I really think, again, this final tribal just like sabotages you and Sam in a way where the questions are not so much about the game and the strategy, and it's a detriment to you two who have played. Not Gary had also played a very strategic game, but your points were highly in the strategic level, in the outwit level, and it was hard to sort of come back from that. And I actually think that something that helped Sam was Pete's stumping for him, and I think he was so close to Pete, but also his immunity wins, I think, really helped him in that situation.
You think?
Yeah, I think Gain, like, you know, Katie was a gamer, right? Katie was there to play. And I think she respected the immunity wins on top of what Pete had to say about him.
I'll tell you, I do not respect immunity wins. I think that's just whatever.
I need another glass of wine I'm not even going to explore that right now.
I think it's fine.
But Innessa, I think something we haven't talked about that I think is very important to talk about is the Eddie vote and losing Eddie. At Final 7. We have not even touched upon
You're
that.
right.
Alex,
I wanted to bring it up every time Innessa said that she controlled the entire game.
Alex, bring it up now. Also, hello to your husband, Alex, so I can see roaming around in the background.
Yeah. He refills. This is great. Yeah. Oh my God, that was dreadful. So, as I was like, it occurred to me that we're at Final 7, and this is like when moves happen. And like I knew, okay, I remember this. Okay, this is so funny that now we're bringing it back. As I'm sitting there, and I'm like looking over at Susan, and I'm like, hey, so I can't remember exactly what I told her, but I said something like, who are you voting for? Right. And we go over voting plans 100 times over before we get to tribal. So there should be no shadow of a doubt as to who you're voting for. You should have an answer off the top of your head because you're already told who you're voting for and you already know. Okay. And she was like, is that the plan? Oh, wait, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm fucked. Like, something's not right. Like, you should have an answer off the top of your head because you should know exactly what the plan is. But she was like, I don't know. Oh, what's going on? And I was like, shit, something's not right. You know what I mean? And that's when I started whispering. I like looked over at her and I'm sitting right next to her and I looked over at her and she said something and I'm just like, something's not right, you know? And that's when I leaned back and I'm talking to Louis and I think talk to Gary and they're all like reassuring me, you know, everything is fine. But it's not fine because Susan should know exactly who she's voting for, yet she doesn't, which is not right. That means she has some other plan and she hasn't come up with a lie fast enough, you know? And so then me and Eddie, like Eddie knew I had an idol, right? And when the plan was, we'll play it. Like, I'll play it on you if you think. So I wasn't 100% sure. The truth is, like, we knew that it was me or him, and we weren't sure what was happening. I wasn't sure if I was just being paranoid or like what was happening. And like, I knew something was going on with Susan, which means something was going on, but like, we weren't 100% sure what. And I would have played it on him 100 times over, even if it was a mistake. Like, we would have gotten Sam out. I would have played it on him. It was a quick decision and we just didn't know exactly what to do. And if I would go back, I probably would have played it on him, even though in hindsight, it would have been a bad move, but we would have seen maybe we would have won immunity next round. I don't know. I would have played it on him.
You talked about it for a while. I feel like during your voting confessional, right, Chris?
That voting confessional was so long and it was like, she's like telling herself like I should play it, and she just doesn't. And we both, I think, were so shocked, Alex, when she didn't play it.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask Chris one quick thing? If Innessa plays this idol, does it get re-hidden right away?
I don't think it does because Gary would still have his idol. Mm-hmm. I think it would have just been
right. So then Innessa doesn't have the chance to find another idol. So bad. I don't want to say it's like, oh, it's the worst decision ever, but like there are these big negatives of like you lose Sam and there's no re-hidden idol. It's such a gamble, and also
losing Sam would have been better than losing if we switched it to like Mark or Gary. If we switched it to Mark or Louis, it would have been much worse actually, because Sam was on a warpath of getting out couples. The only reason he protected me that round was because strategically he understood he needed to break up Mark and Louis. That's why if me and Eddie were in the game, he would have done the same thing to me and Eddie. He would have voted for whoever was left amongst Mark and Louis to get either probably me, maybe not me, probably Eddie. Let's be honest. He would have gone Eddie. Yeah, probably.
Because that's who he did get out.
Yeah, he would have gone Eddie out because he thought he could still work with me, and it was true. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. So actually, getting Sam out there in hindsight, if I'd played my idol on Eddie, getting Sam out there would have been okay. Because then it would have been me, Eddie, Mark, Louis, Susan, okay, and Gary, by the way. And then it would have been trouble. We would have been in trouble. We would have been in a lot of trouble.
That's my theory, is that because Mark and Louis have Susan so tightly, and Gary essentially, and I think a lot of what Gary's narrative throughout this entire season is Gary has to decide between sticking with couples and making the move to get rid of them. And that's why Sam is such a benefit to Gary's game, is because he is someone who's saying, let's split up couples, and allows Gary to make the moves. So I think you're in a bad spot where you really, really, and I think you could do it. You and Eddie could totally do it. You have to convince Gary to come to your side and vote for, say, hey, look, we both have idols. I'll play, you have your idol, let's say you played on me, then we get the numbers. But it's a very bad spot for Gary to be in as well. Yeah. So I'm curious what he would have done. We'll talk to him and Sam.
He wouldn't have gone with us. He wouldn't have gone with us.
I don't know.
He was trying to get me out some.
I feel like if Innessa plays the idol, that challenge was either going to be Innessa's or Eddie's to win, because Innessa was very close in that challenge, and Eddie just seems like the type that would have.
No, Eddie was out.
So well.
It was.
I'm saying if Sam gets voted out with your idol, I think you or Eddie would have won immunity, but I don't think Gary would have forced a tie. I think he would have stayed with the group. They would have gotten out either you or Eddie. I think that would have, you playing the idol would have set the final three up to be Louis, Mark, and Susan.
I think so.
You changed the game by not playing the idol, And
Yeah.
I actually think you made the right move. And I think we talked about this in the podcast, Naomi. Like she made the best move, which was letting her brother go and keeping the idol for herself.
Yeah.
I mean, unintentionally though, I really would have played
She
it.
didn't know that her brother was going.
Oh,
I know.
I would have played it.
But yeah, it worked out. It worked out.
Innessa taught. I mean, I think nothing is more big sister than you talking while Eddie is literally getting his torch snuffed, and you being like, "I can't believe it! I can't believe you guys got me! I knew it! You're
so
you
so
cannot turn
centered
it off." And the whole time, and Eddie is literally standing there like, "It's okay, Innessa, I'm gone. You can't do anything." But it's such a big sister moment that made me laugh really hard.
Yeah, no, he was great. He was such a pleasure to play with. He's really good, actually. I in another world where I wasn't in the game, I think Eddie could have gone really far with Pete.
When is Eddie gonna come play Mafia with us in New York? The real tragedy has been that Eddie has not shown up to the bar in New York since this game.
Yeah, he lives in Jersey City. It's kind of a trek.
No, so Alex, you can carpool with him. Like, there's no excuse anymore. Like, Eddie needs to come hang out with us.
Yeah, that's true.
No, any other? Alex or Chris, any other votes that we haven't talked about that you think might be key moments or something to maybe discuss? I'm gonna look at the voting.
I mean, I'm impressed by Final 9 that Innessa said, "This is what I want to do. I don't want it to be a 4-3-2 split. I want it to be 5-2-2 because I don't trust that somebody could flip on the group, because that would have been a perfect time for somebody to, say, you know what, maybe I'll try and keep Emily and Susan and I'll flip my vote, because Mark could have done that with Gary. It could have been so easy. But Innessa gets full credit for that vote. And it was shown right there on the film, and I was very impressed by that.
Thank you.
Because in most Survivor games, it would just be, okay, we're going to just do the 4-3 on them and then let those two vote however. But she said no, and everybody listened.
Yeah, that's the one with Emily, right? With Emily.
That's the one with Emily, yeah.
I just sent to the private chat, I just sent us the voting breakdown, which I have been meticulously looking at throughout the season.
I remember what Chris said to me right after the game ended. This made me feel so good.
I don't even remember.
Yeah. So as I was like, oh, I'm crushed. Like Chris comes up and he's like, you literally played in like, you lived up to like all of my expectations. Like you played the game that like I wished you would play. Like you like, didn't let me down. Like you surpassed my expectations. Like, thank you for being part of this like journey. And I was like, oh my God, I love you. It like made me feel so good. You're like, thank you for playing. I'm like, oh my God, thank you for having me.
I knew that you'd be a star too. So it was like, wow, she's a great player. She's gonna go down as like a legend with this series. Like if it had a DVD cover, you'd be right there.
Oh my God, so sweet. I really wanted to win. Oh, I tried so hard. I don't know. I don't know.
To your credit, again, this was your very first game. And I think a lot of people experience something in the LRG world where you play a game and you do well and you're like, oh shit, I'm really good at Survivor. And then maybe you play another game and you don't do as well and you're like, oh well, whoops. It's a chance. It's a roll of the dice. But what I've seen you do, and actually I think Alex is someone who also experiences this, is you're good at Survivor and it can maintain. And you're good at Survivor when you play the next time and the next time and the next time. And you can continuously sort of mold and adapt to the situation that you're in. And that's what I was like, oh God, I'm giving Innessa advice for Reelfoot. She's going to do terrible. And I was like,
I don't want to take credit, but I do want to take credit that both Innessa and Louis started their games on Survivor New York, and they went to their next games. And like, yeah, you didn't make it to the end, Innessa and Reelfoot, but if you had, I've heard so many people say you would have won slam dunk 100%, and you were so incredibly close. And I feel like everything you kind of learned from the quickness of Survivor New York kind of prepared you for that. And same, I think, for Louis in Survival Challenge too. I think you guys excelled even better because you had went through like an experience like this.
Yeah, so Reelfoot was also, I played Reelfoot because Pete was talking about it during Survivor New York, and he was like, you got to do this other game. He actually tried to recruit my brother, and I was like, hey, how about me? I want to do this. And that's when I played with William, actually. He was, I don't know if he's still on. I have no idea who's on this watching
it's
this
okay.
right now.
I think everybody's going to catch up in the morning.
Yeah. So I played with William and Alex, and it was such an incredible game because I got voted out at Final Four there right before Final Tribal. My closest allies, William and Alex, decided to backstab me. But like I did hear that I would have won, and then that made me feel so good because the whole time running up to the end of that game, it was the same exact vibe, literally same vibe. Like I was like, this jury hates me. Like I voted every single one of them out. Like I was always in a power position with the rest of my alliance. Like I had every single idol in the game. I literally at one point held every single idol in the game, like in my backpack. Like,
well, it's so funny because I was watching you and my friend from Survivor Buffalo, Carlo, and I was like, oh, I hope they get along. And then you did not get along. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was very much thinking the same thing. I was like, oh shit, Innessa's going to get to the end and lose because people don't like her, but she played. So Alex, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to ask you, does it feel better to make it to the final tribal and lose or get voted out right before final? What's the better feeling?
I think it's better to get to the final tribal council and lose. Because I do think that is the goal. Not to lose, but the goal is to get to the final tribal council because you never know what this jury is going to do. You really never fucking know. You never know. Don't even try to predict it. Do not structure your game around the jury. Don't even try. Get over it. Move on. Just get to the end and see what happens. Because it's impossible to predict what they will do. They have their own theories. They have their own whims. They have their own anybody can sway them at the final tribal because this isn't like Real Survivor where in Real Survivor, I do think that people already have their mind made up at the end. But in Real Foot, I had my mind changed at final tribal council. Okay, so I know how fast things move. And even thinking back, I still wonder if that was the right decision. Right. So it happens very quickly. And I think that could have happened with Louis and Mark. They got there at the very end. They didn't have time to process. I was delusional when I got to the end of Real Foot. I lost 10 pounds in 8 days.
You don't even have 10 pounds to lose. Yeah. I don't know how that's possible.
I was delusional. I don't even know what planet I was on. I was hysterical. A drop of a hat, I can cry. I don't even know what happened to me. And I had to make a decision with very limited information. And I think that juries are crazy and outrageous, and you can't structure your game around them. Just make it to the end and do your best and hope for the best. And that's all. So I was happy I made it to the end. In Real Foot, I didn't make it to the end and I was cut right before, but I heard that I would have won and that feels good, but I don't know.
Yeah, Alex, I'm curious, since this has also happened to you. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, I definitely felt a lot worse making it to the end and losing. That was so I felt the opposite. Because I feel like if you get cut right before the end, I mean, a lot of times you get cut because if you had made it, you would have won. That's normally the reason, and you can feel good knowing that you played a good game. But yeah, made it to the. It's heartbreaking, or at least it was for me. But also, I guess there's a different situation. Depending on, I guess, how bad you lose. I don't know. Or if you lose by one vote versus several votes, there's a difference. I don't know.
You can pinpoint if you go out right before travel, it's very easy to pinpoint. I literally have dreams about just doing that one thing differently and winning the final challenge. You can pinpoint where you lost as opposed to going to final tribal and just losing. You're I don't know what the fuck I did wrong. But
it's just, I believe that the closer you get to winning and still losing, it's just more heartbreaking. And the further away you are, because if you make a mistake and get voted out, you can still assume, oh, maybe I would have made another mistake along the way. It wasn't the difference between winning and losing. But the closer you get to the end, there's fewer things to keep you up at night, and then you just focus on that. And yeah.
What were you going to say, Naomi? I'm sorry I interrupted.
I think I was just going to say that I don't fucking know. I got Alex out for you, I guess, in revenge.
Yeah.
Not you, Alex Wagner. I voted about it for in an org run by Dr. Stan himself. And that was the hardest thing I had to do, where I was oh, do I vote him out and take him to the end and lose? Or do I keep him? Do I take him to the end or do I vote him out? And it was really hard. And I voted him out. So I was this is for Innessa. Here we go.
I should have went to William and I should have sat him down and said, listen to me, buddy. If you put me on that jury, I'm going to poison that entire jury against you. I'm going to make sure they all vote for Alex. I promise you. And
Will watches this back.
Maybe next time he'll believe me.
I forget who won. Who ended up
Alex.
winning?
Alex wins that season.
And then
Absolutely.
you voted for
A lot of
you voted for Alex, or you voted for
I
William?
voted for Alex, and I think I think I did something to that jury.
Listen, it's never wrong to vote for someone named Alex. It's
Yeah.
always a good thing.
Any
Oh,
future
that
Survivor New York
100%.
player can take note. It's never wrong to vote for Alex.
So I wanted to ask
Win.
Innessa, like, so you go into these 2 games, you played so strong, you did so well, and there are a group of us who were there for your experience for Survivor Brooklyn South. So you came in, I feel like you had a reputation. Some people
Yeah.
knew you. So like, what was that going into like a 3rd game? Because like you have a reputation now, and you know people. A lot of these people were your friends. Like, I just want to know, like, your last game, like, how was that playing? Because you got out actually at 9th place
Yeah.
in that game.
I actually thought I was set up really well in Brooklyn South. I just think that the manner in which the idols were hidden made it like impossible for me to find one because they were physically handed to people. Like you can find it in your merge buff. You can find it like there wasn't an ability to go find it. It was
No
like
one gave you any great clues in that season.
yeah, no, it was like whoever got the teddy bear to hold the teddy bear, the idol was in there. Whoever like picked out a particular merge, the idol was in there. There wasn't an ability to like go and look for it or like think of a clue to go find it until after I was voted out. So like, and I think I really needed an idol the specific round I was voted out. Like I knew I was going, there was nothing I could have done about it. But if I had an idol, maybe it would have changed things around. But actually was set up really well there. I had Paddock, who was like the ultimate shield. And then I had James, who was like really great to work with. There was Alyssa Moss was there. She was a phenomenal ally. Earlier on, I had like the entire Stonehouse Mafia crew was playing. Like I think I was set up really, really well there. And it was just like that one vote. I really think I was in a lot of trouble. If I had an idol, I would have definitely played it, and maybe we would have gotten in the numbers because I would have gotten out the group of people trying to get me out. I think I actually could have done very well in that game. It is what it is. It's so much luck involved.
Not like you did bad in any way. Yeah, so much luck. So sometimes somebody who gets voted out, let's say 4th, they just tried their best and it wasn't on their side that day.
Yeah. They should have voted me out in Eddie's spot. I don't know why they didn't vote me out. That was a mistake. How do they not vote me out there? How do they vote out Eddie? That makes no sense.
Was it a mistake? Because again,
true.
Look at the results.
Right.
Well,
We didn't ever know that that's what would happen. They didn't know that that's what happened.
The only person that it is really a mistake for, I think, are Mark and Louis, because Louis doesn't. I don't know if and if he's still here, I think Louis can answer this. I think the alliance between you and Sam is so strong, and I don't know if it's perceived as so strong. But Eddie is a challenge threat, and that's much more immediate. But if Mark takes Eddie to the end, I think Mark can still win.
Mark wins,
Yeah. And I think that the only person that Eddie is a threat for are the purple people, which they still have the Sam, Gary, Louis advantage, Susan, of, potentially getting Eddie out. So I agree. I think maybe taking you out would have been a better move for Mark and Louis in the long run. I
mean, me and Louis were working extremely close together, right? So we were very, very tight. And for a long time, we ran that game. And he protected me, and he protected me more than I protected him by a lot, right? So, I was afraid that if I sat next to Eddie, he would win. I don't think that's true, Louis. I don't think that's true. I think Louis would have swept that jury no matter who he sat next to, including Mark.
Would you vote for Louis?
Yes.
I thought you were saying that that's not true, that's what he thought.
I think I would have voted for Louis over anybody except for Eddie, obviously. I think Louis is the best player on the season, for sure. I think Sam is highly underestimated. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he makes very strategic moves every single time. Count on Sam to make the correct move every single time. Sometimes he disagrees with me and doesn't do the move that I want him to do, but it's always in his best interest. Every single move he makes is always in his best interest. Even trying to get out Sanchea, he didn't close the loop on that. He didn't talk to Sarah, which is a mistake, but strategically, that was a really good move for him, and it would have worked really well. He always makes the correct move, and he's very flexible. He jumps from alliance to alliance. He's friendly with everybody. When he says something, he means it. There's no shadiness going on there. I really think he's a great player.
All this means is that we should tell Pete to make Sam play real foot? Because that's what this is registering to me. I think Sam needs to play real foot.
Sam was out at Real Foot when I was there. I saw him there. It was so fun to say hi to him. I think Sam does really well in these games. I mean, there's a lot more, if I remember correctly, there's a lot more younger people playing Real Foot than older people. He may stick out a little bit. But so in this game, there was like a really good mix. But, I think he's a great player. I think he gets into alliances. He gets into the numbers really well. I think he's very easygoing and easy to play with. But Louis would have beaten everybody, hands down. And I think that Mark would have beaten Eddie. And I think that they should have taken me out there. But Louis and me were very close. So I could see from Louis' perspective not wanting to get me out because he could still pull me in, which is true. I would have worked with him. So at that vote, when it was me or Louis, that was Sam's move, right? So Sam was like, I want Louis out. And I was like, I'll do whatever the hell you want to do. Like, you tell me, I'll do it. Like, I'm not going to quibble over who you want out, Mark or Louis. I don't give a shit. Like, you tell me what name to put down, and I'll put it down with a little smiley face and a heart. And I said that, like, in the episode. That was Sam's move. And sorry, Louis. Like, I'm going for it. But, I would have worked with Louis after that. He probably knew that. That's probably why he got Eddie out. But I think he should have got me out there. Yeah. He could have sat next to Eddie.
So, we're coming to almost an hour and 45 minutes, which is amazing. And I knew that this was going to happen. No shade to anybody. I knew this was going to be a nice long discussion. And also, to be fair, we literally haven't seen each other in months. So
I know, it's so good to see you.
If it was airing while we were at bars together, we would have talked about this more.
Yeah.
So Chris or Alex, is there anything else we want to talk about before we sort of start to ask our closing questions and stuff like that? Chris,
I
off.
Well, I want to ask Innessa is, what is your favorite moment from the entire game? And then the follow-up question is, what was the most surprising thing that you saw during the episodes that you had no clue about, besides the fog on the log, please?
I just also was partly to answer your question. I had such a great time playing with my brother. Like, we're very close, but like, we don't like do these kinds of things regularly or ever, let's be honest. Like, we hang out a lot, like at home, like we play games together, like pool and like dodgeball, whatever, like, games, but like, we don't like, I don't know, whatever, like
throw a dodgeball at your brother.
Volleyball. I meant to say volleyball.
We play volleyball. It's my favorite game.
We play volleyball. Like, we play games, right? But like, we don't do these kinds of things. And it was like very special to like do this with your like kid brother. You know what I mean? And I think he's a phenomenal player. Like, he's a better player than me. Like, you can learn strategy. You can't learn to be a people person. Like, he's actually got better skills in this game than me. Like, he's a better player than me. Like, let's be honest. He's very smart. He's very athletic, and he's very personable. He's very self-aware. He knows how to make people feel good about themselves. He knows how to draw people in and make them like him. He builds alliances. He becomes part of an alliance. He gets drawn in. The strategy part you can learn, right? That's the easy part. Like, I'm an obsessive Survivor fan, so I know strategy. But like, he's actually like a naturally very good player, and I think he would do very well in any game. I think he would do in any single game you drop him into. He would do very well.
I can't wait for David Bloomberg's Why Eddie Lost episode. I'm very excited for it.
Didn't plan and scheme enough, I think. Maybe.
There we go.
Yeah.
So is that your favorite memory? You playing with Eddie?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it is. Well, because memory is like one thing, and I can't think of one specific thing, but the overall thing is like sharing this like weekends like with my brother and doing this thing that we like refer back to, and like now we like have these jokes and like we watch it on TV. We have these buffs. Like, we still have the little containers, like the green and pink container, like with the water that you gave out that had our name on it.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, we still have that. Like, his was green and mine was pink. Like,
so
like
funny.
It's cool. Like, we have this like experience that we share, and I can only imagine what that's like for like Susan and Emily. Despite them not liking me, I do think that that's really cool that they have this memory. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. Me and Emily are cool.
That's actually so funny because I think about that sometimes. I'm like, I wonder if anybody has anything from the game, like that they like took as a souvenir or anything like that. And
Yeah,
it's cool.
we
It's
still
cool
have
to know
that.
that you even have just even the water bottle. To me, I don't
Yeah.
know.
We still have the buff, but it's like these buffs are so much cooler. But we still have like the buffs that we actually used in the game. And your other question, so your first question was what was your favorite memory, and then your other question was what were you most surprised to see in the episode?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I could say I was surprised to see Gary trying to get me out so many times because like I kind of like always thought that he was like way more loyal, but like that's interesting. It's very interesting also to see how loyal Louis was, like how in check he kept Mark. And it's also very funny to see like Louis, and not Louis, it was Sam, like like Sam strategizing and like naming the alliances, like naming the people in the alliance. Like he always kept forgetting about
That's
Louis.
so
That was
funny.
so funny. I was also really like I knew that it was in Hoy's interest to try to build a counter alliance with Gary and Sam. And I thought that was like in their best interest to do. But I didn't realize he was really actively doing it as I was thinking this is in their best interest to do. And I think like I mentioned it a couple of times in the episode. I'm like, it would like maybe next round, I can see the danger. I can see Hoy picking up Gary and Sam and going against the Louis, Mark, me, Eddie alliance, because then there's 4 of us, and then they could pick up Susan, right? And then Emily was there at the time. I think Emily was, I can't remember now. I don't know if Emily was there at the time. Oh no, she was. She was there at the time because me and Hoy talked about this later, and Hoy was like, the regret that I have is not going to Emily saying, let's work together with Susan. Oh, you know what? It was Sarah. It was Sarah because we got Emily out before Sarah, right?
No, Sarah goes
After.
one before Emily.
Sarah goes before Emily. So then it was Emily, Susan, Hoy,
Sarah's 10th,
Gary.
Emily's 9th.
I just wanted to highlight that Louis still has the rope that he cut.
I think
from.
that's really
Wow.
cool. Oh my, I need to like ask everybody from every season. Like, do you have anything from
Tyler
the
gonna
show?
be like
Why?
pieces of string.
My favorite thing is actually for Alex's birthday one year, I gave him his idol from like season 1 and 2.
Thank you for that.
Do you,
Yes,
do you still have it?
I do. I don't know where it is, but I definitely have it.
Don't lose it like Andrea lost her real idol. Okay?
Yeah, I won't. I'm not gonna lose
One of my
it.
favorite like
Because I don't take it. I don't take it anywhere to show it off. That would be weird.
one of my mortifying stories, but I don't think it's me, but Andrea Belke did our Outlaugh show, brought the idol, and I got to like literally look at it, and I was like, I'm starstruck by this fucking piece of Survivor props. And then she
Wow.
lost it like the week after, and there was a moment where I was like, did I lose Andrea Belke's idol? But I didn't. But I was like, oh my god, like I freaked out for like a good.
It was when she
That's
brought
funny.
it to Eliza's.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Mm.
So, Innessa, what was
Chris.
you saying?
Chris, what was your favorite part
Aw.
of this season?
Wow, that's a good question. No one's ever asked me that.
I guess we're gonna have to do a Chris deep dive. one
That's
day.
really hard. I think I have to say the Sarah vote, the Charles vote was just so big. And like I even still have audio of my reaction and me and Alex talking in the confessional booth of us being like, oh my God, that was insane. Like that was self-preservation mode. Like she was like, I don't give a damn about like anybody else. I'm just worried about myself. And I was just very impressed to see people really play the real raw like Survivor. But
Yeah,
then at the same time, like I've known Gary for a while, and to see Gary win this game, honestly, I was very shocked. I never knew until the end that he was going to win because I really wasn't paying attention to like the confessionals and the alliances in the game. I really learned a lot about you guys during my questions at Tribal Council. So seeing Gary win was very surprising, but also really rewarding because I have known him for like 5 years
Wow.
now. So
I did feel really good for him. Like when he like fell on the floor, like crying, it like obviously meant so much to him. And in that moment, I was like, I'm happy he won so he can like have this moment because it obviously means so much to him. Where like it means a lot to me too. And I would have like thought it was really cool, right? Like
Yeah.
I would have really, really loved it. And it would have meant a lot. But like to see somebody like it obviously manifestingly means so much to him. Like it made me feel really good that he had that. So like I was happy for him, like really happy for him genuinely at the time. Afterwards,
oh yeah, that was really funny. Like at that after Sam won immunity, you like did that little grr noise at him. Like I thought that was kind of cute. Like because you were so close to winning the challenge.
Yeah.
I thought I really needed it too.
I loved like afterward, like Gary winning, like I cut it together and it looked, maybe that was like a prideful moment, just like the scenes of like Eddie and Sanchea laughing, then like you and Sam like hugging at the end, and everybody just like together, and it just looks so special, and it was just like really summarize like all the friendships and the relationships that we'll all have. And then I purposely left this in, but Naomi was crying.
Yes,
and I was also crying. And you could hear it. And Stan says, "You cry every game." And I said, "I know, I can't help it." And then,
it's emotional.
And Naomi's like, I didn't have any friends, and I made all these friends, and she's
That's
hugging.
shocking.
I thought it was so cute, and I had to keep that in there. And it was just like, it really was
Naomi's
everybody.
one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
Part of that behind the scenes was that like, it's not that I didn't have any friends, but I had lost a big friend group through like a lot of stuff that happened. It's actually where I met Mark Levy originally, and I lost this big friend group. And then I met Jared, and I did the Survivor show, and then I met Amy, and then Amy brought me to Mafia, and then I met all of these Survivor fans, and then I became friends with everybody, and then I met more people through this experience. I mean, I met Chris, for God's sake. And so I was very, very tired, and I was overwhelmed with like how many new friends I had made. I think I remember looking at Alex, and Alex was like, "This is crazy. I'm not touching this." Like he was like, "No, you can go cry somewhere else." Like,
But I was very impressed, Alex, because you filmed that whole thing.
I was very, very tired, and I think I'd been very short bossy that whole day. And you're like, "You can go cry somewhere else."
I don't remember.
Thank you, Alex, because I know that was your camera because you weren't in any of the shots. So I was like, okay, well, Alex had to obviously be filming this whole thing.
Taller than everybody else, like filming.
Yeah, I filmed it. I couldn't believe it. So everyone at the show ends, everyone's hugging and laughing, and I was just thinking, none of my seasons were there any hugging and laughing. Like,
Really?
I'm like, what?
Oh my God!
How come it never happened for any of my seasons?
So true. I remember season 2 ends. We go in my living room, and people were just starting to get like drunk like crazy. And then a fight broke out. It was nasty.
It was not pleasant. And I'm looking at this, and I'm just like, I want this. I want to be on a season like this.
Gary's such a likable winner. That's the thing. You know what else really surprised me? Seeing Sanchea's confessional as she was voting, where she said, "Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm voting for this person." I'm like, really? No shadow of a doubt? Not one shadow of a doubt? Like,
okay, I also loved Eddie's vote. He stayed true to himself the whole season. Like, this definitely had to be done.
Are you going to release a montage of all of Eddie's votes? Because
I think we have to. We have to.
We will.
Oh,
yeah,
it
my
had
favorite part.
Innessa, you have to send me your address because I have Eddie's vote for you, and I want to send it to you.
Oh, please! That'd be so great.
So I will give that to you.
So
message me.
I will do that. That would be so great. You know what's really funny? Right before the filming of this season, like how everybody applied. You guys asked people this question before, like how did you apply to the show? So it was so funny because there was like this podcast of some guy. I don't remember his name, but he used to run like a show. I really don't even know his name. I think he moved to like California. And he went on Rob Has a Podcast, and he was talking about these like fan-run Survivor games. Who is it?
It's Matt Pavlovich.
Yeah.
He was on
it. That's it. That's right. Because I remember thinking he had like a Russian or a Polish-sounding last name. Yeah. So he went on Rob Has a Podcast, and I'm like, this exists? Like, this is a thing that people do? This is incredible. You know what I mean? And then like I never heard about it, and I was like, this is amazing. I need to get involved. And I remember even like messaging Rob on and I was like, how do I do this? And he's like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know anything about this. And then Dan Dude Mama, like he messaged me like a week later or something like that. And he's like, hey, so I'm like casting for this Survivor New York game. Like, were you interested? I'm like, yes. I'm like, I didn't know how to jump on this fast enough. I'm like, how did I become part of this? This is amazing. Like, and then he's like, we're going to need you to send a video. I'm like, filming it right now.
Well, I think maybe if you want to message Rob and ask him if we want to do another episode, because I think it's really funny there's such a huge, I mean, live reality games, there's over 1,000 people on Facebook, and yet still people are just finding out about these games. People who, do sequester minis and online games, like literally just finding out about this. So I think the word is still out there to be spread.
And Matt P is the one. Yeah. Matt P ran Survivor Brooklyn.
Yeah, he hosted the first live game that I ever played. Yeah. And then he was on season 1 of
You
Survivor.
couldn't get the what was it, the Sardine Tin Open?
Survivor Brooklyn was the biggest game at the time because it had Andrea, it had Sophie, it had Zeke before he even got on Survivor.
It had Alex.
And it had me.
And it had Alex. And then I saw that season and I messaged Matt and I said, Matt, I noticed you've never played. You should come do my game, Survivor New York. And Matt told so many people about this. He brought so many people along.
Yeah, and that became a storyline because it was Matt knows way too many people who are playing.
Yeah, and I have to say I give Matt a lot of credit because I don't know if Survivor New York would be where it's at if it wasn't for him kind of introducing me to so many different friend groups from the city. And I say this to a lot of people too, is Alex is the only person outside of my friends group, my family, that has been to every season of Survivor New York. He's been loyal since the beginning, so I'm very appreciative of you, Alex.
Yeah. I'm loyal to you and loyal to all of my allies anytime I play.
Me too. Yeah. Well, Chris, I think you run one of the smoothest, most efficient games. I am a stickler for the rules. I'll tell you this.
Oh, we know, Innessa.
I wonder if that's the answer of why did some of the people why were some of the people mad at you even though they weren't on your tribe?
Innessa, have I ever told you that when we make seasons, the way I phrase it is you have to Innessa proof a challenge?
Oh my god, that is so funny because you did that. I think we talked about that.
I told George too. You have to answer every question that someone might have, and you have to make sure that they're never going to be upset that something might be unfair. Which, no offense, not meant to be mean to you, but you are always the person to be this is not correct, this is wrong.
I know.
You know what? In a game where, especially in something like Brooklyn South, where it's a day. It goes by fast. You don't always have the time to look at everything and say this is fair, this is even, this is correct. But I call it Innessa proofing because you got to make sure that the lawyer can't tell you that you're wrong.
Because you put so much into it, right? You put so much of yourself into this game that you want to have the best chance. You need everything to be correct. You know what I mean? But I think
want to say good. One of my favorite Innessa moments that wasn't on air, but I probably want to put in a blooper was actually during the OTEV challenge.
Yeah, that was so annoying.
Innessa, what was it annoying? I thought it was cute, but Innessa turns around and talks to everyone and goes, "Oh my god, guys, we're playing OTEV. This is so fucking cool." And that's when I love when the players say stuff like that. You know, they get to play a challenge or something like that. But when Innessa said that, I felt so happy in that moment. I knew some of the other, Gary was so excited because he's such a Big Brother fan. Some of the other players and people on production were "Oh, this is so cool. I would love to do this challenge." And that inspired me to do it again.
Blocks. Yeah. That's when we ran to find the blocks so I have a funny story about that. Two funny stories. So Gary and me both have idols in our pocket. And we're running, we're holding this idol in our pocket, and it's very difficult to run. And you can see that we're both holding something. And I think Gary at some point turns to the camera and was it's really hard to run with this bitch. And I think I have a similar confessional to that where I'm is it possible to run with this thing? But I remember the strategy to OTAV is that you take the blocks and you kind of put them in your little pile and you know where the names are. You collect all the blocks of one of each name, and you kind of know, and you put them in a secret spot. So then you can always return back to your pile. And then I see Chantel, and then at the start of her, redistributing my stash. And I'm what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, so this is a funny example of Innessa proofing the game, which is Chantal didn't like this, and we sort of, I can't remember what decision we made in the moment. I think we were fine, go ahead, mess them up. But the next season we did OTEV, we said we're going to scramble them each round.
No, we did it for season 3 too. Season 3, that was the rule. Yeah. After every round, we reset and make them all even and put all the names down.
It was made on the fly.
No, we did it every round. Both times we did it.
Sure.
And it was
I also, it's funny, I was just thinking about this. I think Matt P is literally why, because if Matt P doesn't make Brooklyn, then Jeffrey Marks doesn't continue it, right? Because I get into Survivor games because Jeffrey Marks hosts a game. So like, and I wouldn't have met George. And like, you know, like the web kind of like all funny enough leads back to Matt P, which is kind of hysterical. Like he's the grandfather of all LRGs in New York City.
Yeah.
But I didn't apply through Matt P. Like I just was so into the idea. I was like looking for it. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I get involved?
How did you know Dan though? I
did not know him. He literally just messaged me out of nowhere.
Wow.
And he was like, you should, I don't know, maybe he asked around, maybe he knew that like I played Mafia. Like he just met, he's like, I think you'd be really good at this. Are you interested? I'm like, boy, am I interested. I'm like, I can't believe you just messaged me. I've been trying to figure out how to get involved in this.
So, Innessa, you're just a recruit, aren't you?
Yes.
That's really funny.
I am.
Like this is like so crazy because it's just like things are meant to happen. And it's like you steamroll, like you start Survivor New York, then you go to Real Foot, then Brooklyn South, and then there's whatever comes next, and it's like you become this LRG celebrity. And I think I'm like the first person to say it, or maybe not, but I think that there are LRG celebrities. They're well-known names. I think one of the two biggest, from my understanding, have to be like Ame and Lance. I feel like they're just like huge names. You know the names. You've seen them play like so many games. I think Stacy is also one of them. But I think years to come, there will be more LRG celebrities, legends, and we'll start seeing them possibly show up on like real reality shows or even maybe their own, you know. So we'll see.
One of my favorite memories was from Brooklyn South 1. It was when Laura Holzwasser wouldn't stop talking about how she knew Jordan Kalish and Alex Forstenhauser. And I was like, some of us are trying to keep that quiet. Like, some of us don't want to reveal that information. And I was just like, Laura, shut the fuck up. I didn't know Laura.
I spent the night with her because we share the same Airbnb, and that's all she would talk about.
I know. And I was like, Laura, stop. Some of us don't want people to know that we know these guys. Like, please.
Oh, man.
That was my favorite memory of that game. I was like, oh, my God. Well,
no, that's good.
So we are almost at 2 hours, which is hilarious and amazing.
Is Louis still here?
Innessa, would you play Survivor New York again? I think that's the big question.
Of course I would. Come on.
Like I didn't know that, but great.
Yeah. I mean, how can I not? This is like the greatest game. It's amazing. Like Real Foot is very difficult to play because it's so long. It's like an 8-day commitment. Although I would still play that like again anyway. But I think Survivor New York is the smoothest run game out there. I think it's more smoothly run than Real Foot, and there's more room for error in Real Foot because it's a longer game. But I think like it is so fair. Like it's so fair. The twists are really good. There isn't like an overwhelming amount of idols. Like they were very evenly distributed. The advantages were interesting. Like everything was very thought out. The challenges were really good. There's a lot of running challenges. But by the way, after Survivor New York, when I knew I was going to do Real Foot, I literally got into shape. Like I started running almost every day. And like I fucking crushed like every running challenge after that, like for a while. Like I was like a good runner for like 2 years. I stopped running now because of COVID. But like I was like a really good runner. So I'm thinking like if I could give one tip to anybody that's playing Survivor New York, start fucking running, like get into running shape. Like every single challenge is running based. I shit you not. Every single challenge is running based. Unless you're like holding
it wasn't the case for the first 2 seasons. That was like a new thing. And I was jealous because I like to run.
Oh yeah, all those camera shots that are like, you know,
unless you're balancing something,
you're running. Where someone is running with the camera, that is Alex, because none of us will do it.
Well, that's how I knew that. Like I needed to be brought to the end. Like there was no way I could win. Every single challenge was a running challenge, and like Gary and Mark are runners. Sam is not a runner actually, but like Susan was a runner. You know, like I had no chance. Like I knew they were going to win. Like I needed Susan out so bad. I can't believe that Gary voted me out over Mark in that final. I guess he wanted
he wanted Mark's vote because Mark was threatening him.
Yeah. Oh, also, I have a question to Chris about changing the Final Four thing from to Rocks. You changed it to Rocks. For this season. In season 2, the Final Four tiebreaker was questions, But here he made the announcement that if it's another tie, it's going to go to rocks.
I think we had, like, Naomi and I and maybe Dan had discussed, like, okay, let's put everything in the rules before the game starts so they could read it. And I had printed out this paper and we passed it around. Everybody saw the paper. You know, whether there had been a tie or not, I wanted it to be more similar to the real show, which was, you know, rocks, but except for the Final Four. But at that time, I was never thinking. I was never thinking about doing fire making because it's just not realistic.
Do it.
You did trivia for 2.
I did.
I'm surprised.
But I liked the shock factor of rocks because I think rocks are dramatic. I think I think fate plays into it, and I think luck plays into it. And I could only imagine a rock draw where maybe Gary pulls the rock, and like, what would have happened? You know,
but it definitely gave Gary an out, and then voting out Mark, because he could just be like, well, of course I'm not going to go to rocks, but like if it was going to be necessarily like a trivia thing or something, he had no reason to change it back and to go back on
except that. He loses to Mark. Duh.
It would have been but I agree. I think you should vote out Mark. This would be a good question to ask Gary, because I feel like he was planning on voting out Mark anyway.
I think so.
But it definitely, makes even more sense for him to vote out Mark after you announce that it's going to be a rock draw.
I wish I'd made more of a deal of that, like maybe really highlighted that as a mistake to the jury. But honestly, I don't think anything I would have said would have changed anything. It wouldn't have mattered.
Well, I think when we talk to Mark, especially, we can find out like what sort of changed his mind. And I think, again, another thing that I think is hard to sort of recognize when you watch it all back is that this was like minutes. Like Mark doesn't even have enough time to shower because we're going into final tribal council, and there's no time to decompress and think and have a moment to yourself. And so it can be very hard to articulate your point of view, your thoughts, think about how everybody else is considered in the grand scheme of things. So you guys did not have a lot of time to break it all down for yourselves and come up with a strategy, because we were like, holy fuck, we got to get the fuck out of here. And
as somebody who was voted out in 4th and then went into final tribal and had to make a decision right away, I remember thinking, I was ready to be convinced. And like, I was looking for an excuse to like, move this way or this way. And it's just like, it was so easy to sway me. Like my mind was just mush. You know what I mean? And like, it was just very easy to convince me. It was like, whoever said something last that like, blew my mind last, like, I was a mess. And I could imagine maybe Mark was like in a very similar place. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to know. Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
That brings us up to what's going to happen in the next coming weeks. On Monday, we're going to talk to Sam and Gary with our special guest, Dr. Stan. And then in the future, we have to schedule it. We're going to talk to Mark with special guest Jordan Kalish. And we're going to talk to Susan with special guest Dan. And those will eventually be announced on our Instagrams and our Facebooks. So you can follow us. Look at that. I wrote it all down for you. Was there anything else we want to say before we all go to bed and go night-night?
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I want to give Gary the proper props. I think I haven't said enough good things about him. Okay. As much as I wish I had won. Okay. I think Gary is a phenomenal player also. I really do think that he weaved through the situation. He used me as a shield. He used Louis and Mark as a shield. He was in the right place at the right time every single time. He was never somebody that anybody wanted to vote out. And he speaks very eloquently and passionately. That's most important. He speaks passionately. Like, it means so much to him to have this, that if I was in the jury, like, I would want to give him something that he wants so much. You know what I mean? And it's such an emotional plea that, like, it really plays on your heartstrings to the point where when he won and beat me, I felt really good for him. So as a jury member, I can see that, like, wanting to give him that, you know what I mean? And I think, look, I think he played a great game. And, like, I don't think I've said that enough. Like, I think he's a very deserving winner. Shut up, Emily. And I just don't think I said that enough. And I want to make sure that we say that, because I spoke about everybody else being a great player and all the good things that everybody else did, but I didn't say anything about the actual winner of this game who deserves this win And, I wish I had more of Gary in me, Don't we all? That's
Don't
it.
we all?
I'm done.
Oh, yeah. And I'm so excited because what we have coming up as well. So we obviously tease that season 4 is in the works. We have the voting confessionals for season 3 coming out pretty soon. Chris also is probably going to put out some bloopers and secret scenes, I assume. I don't know. Chris has been doing so much, so you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then in season, once 2021 comes around, we're going to announce the season forecast. We're going to show beautiful trailers and stuff. Like, there's so much Survivor New York coming, so make sure that you're connected and following us and joining especially our viewer group on Facebook, because that's where I post everything.
And Innessa, you should watch season 4 so we can bring you back for a podcast.
I 100% will.
Okay, great.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, it was great.
Thank you, Alex, for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me. Innessa, you played great. I hope this was therapeutic for you.
It was. Thank you. I really talked about everything on my list.
Yeah, Michael Bay is $35.
If there's anything that you forgot to mention, just give me a call and we'll just talk about it one-on-one.
Oh my God.
Is there an episode called Fog in the Log in season 4? Is that what you mentioned before?
We'll tell you when we're
up.
And Chris, thank you for being here. And Innessa, thank you for joining us. I know
you for having me.
Thank you for all your comments throughout the whole season, keeping everybody engaged and being there to talk to everybody who would talk to us along the way. I think it was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for the awesome edit I received. I really enjoyed it. It was great watching. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, good night, everybody. And
good night.
On Monday at 9 p.m. when we'll be back to talk to Sam and Gary.